Basically made you promise that you weren't going to declaw them.
Reached in, pulled him out.
Anybody watching the feed, actually, I should say?
Yeah, I am. And we are up.
All right. Hello and welcome to DnDeBrief episode number 13. 13. Lucky 13.
Oh, Lord.
I am DM Samuel, and I am here with my awesome players, Nina.
Hi.
Say who you're playing and what class and species you are, please.
I play Emerald Ornestra, who is a human storm cleric.
And David.
Hi, I play Axley Tillingquest, who is a slightly irate halfling bard from having his artifact thrown into the mud and trying to keep a couple of interrogatable suspects alive that didn't work out.
And Hikaru.
Hi, I'm Karu, and I am playing Marcel, a gender-fluid Lutrinian storm sorcerer who has no idea what Axley's problem is. I didn't do anything wrong.
And Matthew.
I'm playing Khonnos Lendath, a sea elf, great old one warlock, and now aspiring fisherman.
Why aspiring fisherman?
Mud fisherman.
Mm, I see, I see. All right, who wants to do a recap?
It's been a long time.
It has.
It
You
has.
say that
How's it,
every
3
time,
weeks?
though.
But it's always true.
It is.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So I think we started in kind of like the basement area of like the mud temple. Is that where we
Mhm.
started last time? But we found the spinning lens type thing,
Mhm.
and accidentally spoke the phrase, and it showed us. Yeah, was not intentional. It showed us what we believe to be Lurlak. Is that who that was? But they were.
I think it was more we were on separate sides of the basement. We were like, hey, so this thing says Hilarlac awaits? Somehow
There's a
that
miscommunication all around. But he was seemingly leading a huge army of aquatic creatures, mostly looking not alive the second time we saw the image. And then we started exploring a little bit more, and we slid braziers into place and opened up a door that led even farther down. And we found blue goblins doing some kind of ritual with a Hokka person slowly turning into a crab on the altar, and behind them the gate spell starting to make some very concerning noises behind him. But Khonnos quickly put a stop to that, luckily, and we ended up fighting them plus a bunch of mud things. And then I think we killed all of the goblins except for the one that actually had charmed. So I think they're still writing on the wall.
Right now, they're cowering in the corner because
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Marcel's sword was running around the room stabbing things. And the one goblin that was trapped in Axley's cage got pushed into the
Boiling mud.
boiling mud. Yes. And the last that you saw of the big mud creature was
Oh yeah.
that it went into one of the walls
And vanished and didn't come back.
and has not come back at this point.
That's a problem.
And there is, but the gate is closed, and the words that are on the wall are no longer being lit up because the goblin is no longer chanting. And the Hokka that is on the altar is still on the altar struggling.
and then we moved to try and
I think last stream was the stream we got cut short.
Yeah, my power went out and it
Right.
or my computer restarted or something weird happened, so we
Yeah.
cut it short a little bit. So the episode ended a little bit abruptly. So you didn't actually take any actions after the trapped goblin got pushed into the bubbling pool of mud and the other mud creature went into the wall. That's when we stopped. So we didn't really resolve the Hokka on the altar. We didn't resolve the living goblin.
I believe the altar is surrounded by like a relatively large pool of boiling mud.
Yeah, the altar is actually sitting on posts that are coming out of the mud.
Oh, good.
So it's pretty much in the middle of the boiling mud pool.
Well, as one of you seafaring folk good with knots, can you help me subdue this guy before he comes to his senses?
Sure. Or do you want me to try to fish the guy out that I inadvertently knocked into the mud?
Well, that's not going anywhere. Let's take care of this guy first, so we don't have to fight another enemy.
All right. Are we still in initiative at this point or no?
No, you're out of initiative.
Okay, then I'll help actually truss up the one goblin who's left.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure my weapon is just dancing back towards me, so I'm just gonna grab it and put it away.
Okay. Okay.
Or maybe not put it away and see if I can free the Hokka on the table. Is the table like in the center of the boiling mud? Like can it be reached?
It's the altar that the Hokka is laying on is literally sitting on 4 posts that are rising out of the mud. So these enormous like wooden posts rising out of the boiling mud, about
So
a foot and a half.
so we'd have to kind of like jump onto the altar itself because there's
Yeah.
no floor around it.
Right, sort of. I mean, it's kind of on a dais, so that the actual altar itself is not technically sitting on the 4 giant logs that are basically sticking up
Okay.
out of the ground. But
So it has like a lip around
it has a small lip. Yeah, it's kind of a small dais with a little step. But it is definitely looks hard to deal with.
How much of a jump is it from the edge?
That is a good question. Let me find out.
I think there's like
So-
corners where you could. It's kind of like less than 5 feet.
Yeah,
Like
it probably the largest jump is 5 to 6 feet,
Okay.
and
looking at the map,
it's the southeast corner. Sorry to cut you
Sorry.
off, Matt.
I'm sorry. Yeah, like the most like the altar's like not dead center. It's kind of more towards the back of it.
Right. It was closer to the portal,
Mhm.
right? The gate that was open.
Yeah. Okay, so I could jump over and start trying to untie or cut the Hokka loose. Is he roped down or is it chains?
It's chains.
Okay, I put my sword away. Anyone good with chains? Cat, please.
I mean, I can try and break them. I have a decent strength, but if we're talking lockpicking, no.
That's better than I can say.
I mean,
I don't-
are there shackles that are locked?
Yeah, it's manacled. His 2 arms are manacled, one each to hold them out to their sides, and remember his hands and the lower arms are crab claws, and his feet around his ankles are manacles holding him down, and then there are a couple of chains around his torso.
I'm gonna jump over anyways, so
Okay.
at least I can talk to this person.
Do you want to give me an athletics check? Or, yeah, an athletics check, I suppose.
Okay. It's better than athletics. I was a little worried. Oh, that's good. A natural 20.
Okay. Imran jumps over and does a very graceful leap onto
A little uncharacteristic.
the.
Yeah. Why can't you do that when the pressure's on?
Uh, she ends it with a little plie.
Is the Hokka conscious?
Yes, and struggling
Okay.
and obviously afraid.
Does it look like they're slowly like being transformed, like it's continuing kind of like Lucanius, or can I tell?
You can roll me a medicine check.
Medicine is 18.
It looks like it was a very rapid transformation from whatever, you're assuming this Hokka was typical Hokka
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like this was a very, in other words, it seems like this transformation only started happening when that gate was open.
Got it.
It's very fresh. Like the
Yeah.
claw is more like the actual shell part of the claw, the chitinous exoskeleton part is pretty soft.
Okay.
But
But now that
not soft and mushy like the crabs that you all fought all those times that were sort of mealy and mushy and gross.
Yeah.
This is more like it just hasn't finished forming yet.
Got it.
How do you stop now that the gate is shut?
It looks like it.
I am just kind of non-threateningly just be like, we're here to help, I promise. We stopped whatever was happening to you, I think. We're gonna try and get you out of here.
And what language are you speaking?
Speaking common.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, he could see that you're talking to him, but he doesn't make any kind of reply.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna start fidgeting with the chains to see if I can see what kind of locking mechanism, if there's anything, if there's any weak points.
What's everyone else doing at this time?
Have we finished tying up the charmed one?
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
Okay.
He's very compliant. He's, oh, well, you want me to turn around and put my hands? Okay.
Nice. Then yeah, I'm on fishing detail at this point.
Okay.
Like just taking my trident, kind of poking around in the mud where I knocked the goblin, and to see if I can try to grab something and pull it out.
You feel lumpy stuff in there, but it feels pretty deep too. You might be able to like use your trident like almost like a fork or a spatula and try to lift something out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll try that.
You want to try that? Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you please give me Oops. Oh, I'm just gonna throw all my stuff on the ground. How about that? This is my typical. Oh, I've got too much stuff out. Okay. Why don't you please give me a Go ahead and give me an athletics check.
Okay. 26.
How much?
26.
Oh, okay. You, with some difficulty, fish out something, and you sort of put it off on the shore, so to speak, on the bank of the pool. And
Hey, actually, I caught one.
It's completely covered with goopy mud.
All right.
I shout over, hey, look for a key on that thing, would you?
Okay.
A key?
See if that
On the-
goblin had a key on it.
Is it
Oh,
is
if
it
it's
still
still
the
intact.
goblin inside?
You have no idea what it even is. It just looks like a big clump of mud.
Oh, great.
Can I try to start just brushing it off?
It's
hot.
very hot.
Ooh, okay. Ow, ow.
Is there enough water in the mud to use shape water on it?
It's
What about
You-
water in your handle of your sword or whatever it was? Do you have any extra water to rinse it off?
I could.
remember the mud pool is like the consistency of sort of slightly watery concrete.
So I don't know if this is beyond the scope of the spell, but would shape water be able to extract the water from the mud to like dry it? Make it easier to like crack it off?
I can also create water with the ring that I have. I can expend a slot to create water. I can just take some from my water skin. I drop
It's a
from there.
cantrip, so I never know exactly how powerful it can be.
Yeah.
It's one of those DM's discretion.
Yeah.
Let me think about this for a second. Hmm. Let me think. So what exactly do you want to do? You want to extract the water.
So that it's just left with like dry mud that would be easier to clean off than mud.
Hmm.
It's either that or I could freeze the water to counteract the fact that it's boiling hot. Both of those are listed as things I can do with shape water, but it says you choose an area of water that you can see. So I'm not sure if like water made into mud counts as an area of water or not. I think that's where the DM call comes in.
I mean, is the thing that comes out of the pit roughly about the right size?
Yeah, roughly. I'm trying to decide on the ease of doing this. I think you could probably cause the water to leave a relatively small, because it says something about like within a 5 foot, it fits within a 5 foot square or something, right?
Yeah, 5 foot cube.
Okay. I think you can probably cause the water to flow out of the mud and leave the dirt particles behind. I think I'll allow that.
Okay.
And then can I also, to kind of help with that, I've got prestidigitation, which says among other things, you can chill, warm, or flavor up to 1 cubic foot of non-living material for 1 hour. So I can maybe just try that and just cool spots of it off while Marcel's moving the water off of it as well.
Okay, I'll allow that as well. You basically, so the water starts moving away and you start cooling everything. And as the water sort of comes out, you see that the muddy portions left behind do not form the shape of a humanoid.
Yeah.
It's formed more like a crab.
Ew. Okay, well, that's not what I was
Sorry,
looking for.
like a what?
A crab.
Oh. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Say that again, Matt.
Normal crab size or big crab or?
Large crab.
Okay.
I would say small size, not humongous.
Yeah. Well, all right. Sorry. Actually, I guess that might be one for the pot, but I know that's not what you're looking for. I can keep trying.
I wouldn't eat.
I'm not eating that. Yeah.
It was probably a Hokka. I just glanced at the Hokka on the table.
Yeah. And then
Yeah, I'd like it. I'd like my cave back if you can find it.
Right,
Is there a way?
Khonnos realizes what Marcel is saying, throws up on his mouth a little bit. Oh, yeah, right. No. And then goes back to fishing.
You can. So I guess the question is, how long are you going to fish things out of here? How long will you attempt this?
Maybe 5 minutes or so. I mean, is there anything anybody else needs to do in this room?
While they're fishing, I am gonna try and break the shackles. I'm gonna take my mace out and see if I can aim it at the very base of any of the shackles and see if I can
Okay.
break them.
Okay. By hitting it or by trying to invoke the power of Goros, or what are you?
I think I'm just gonna hit it.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if I can. Yeah.
Khonnos, are you watching this?
I'm probably mostly focused on the mud and trying to extricate things. But if something like unusual catches my eye, I might look at it.
Okay. Imran, you want to give me a attack roll?
I would. 13.
So you hit it, and it just kind of goes ching, and does not break.
I
Maybe
will
it's
go.
easier to break the chains free from the table where they're attached.
I think that's what she was at.
Yeah, but that.
Yeah.
So the then the coral where you hit starts to drip a red substance that looks quite a bit like blood.
Oh, that's horrifying.
I don't like that.
Do I see that?
You felt that hit,
Ah, ow!
and you take
What was that?
3 points of damage.
Oof.
Oh crap. That's bad.
Ugh.
Meanwhile, I heard the ting, and I was like, "Hey, maybe I can frostbite it, and then you can hit it." And then he goes, "Ow!" And I'm like, "Or maybe not."
Okay, maybe not. Okay, that sucks.
Ow. Please don't. Ouch! Please don't do that again.
Noted.
How are you connected to the altar?
I didn't even know I was until that just happened.
The altar is made of interesting blue and purple coral.
Oh, well, maybe there's a connection between that and the piece I've got. Okay, either way, don't careful. Don't hit that thing again.
Okay. Sorry.
It's all right. We didn't know.
So it's a living piece of coral in the mud down here? That's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
Khonnos, you want to roll me a will save?
Wisdom save.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, what did I say? Will save?
Yeah, 21.
I'm in a different edition, apparently.
No problem.
Someone's played too much 4th edition.
Yeah. Okay. Imran, what are you going to do next?
Not hit it.
That's fair.
I yell over at everyone. I don't think there's anything else I can do besides physically break it. We're either going to have to find a key or pick the lock.
How many charges does my chime of opening have? How does that work? Can you only use it a certain number of times in a day? Or
you do not attune to that item, so you have no idea if it will work again or not.
I don't attune to it? What do you mean?
So magic items come in sort of two basic types. They come in a type that just sort of has magical properties that are useful, and they may or may not have a certain set number of times they can be used per day or per their entire lifespan. And then there are weapons and other items, usually wondrous items, that have to be attuned to. That is, you have to actually spend a lot of time with the item, and then you learn all of its properties, including how many charges it has. So, for example, your sword that you have, you attuned to that, so you know all of its properties, which is why I sent you the email with all of that information. But the cage thing that you used, you don't attune to that, and the chimes you don't attune to. So
I basically just use it in the dark until it stops working.
pretty much, yeah. Or you could have you can have a magic user identify it and try to discern all of its properties.
Okay. I wonder, do you think I would have to use it 4 times for 4 different locks, or would it be just a single use to try to get the guy free?
Are you asking me, or are you asking your partners?
Yeah, I'm putting the general question out there to everybody.
I suspect it might be one lock, but okay, so I have 2 spells that could work to get the Hokka free. One of them, but I don't know if you want to expend higher level magic. But if that's our only options, assuming he consents to it, I could use reduce spell. make him smaller so that we can slip him out of the shackles.
I say,
Good idea.
I feel like that should be our second option if the chime doesn't work. I think we should try the chime just to see if it does anything.
Well, what worries me about the chime is if I have to use it 4 times, it kind of defeat the point if I use it once or twice and get 2 of them open, and then the other ones won't open, and it's exhausted.
Well, when we open, you use it to open the door to this room, and I think there were multiple locks on that, and one use opened all of them.
Oh. Well,
I was gonna
that
say,
way.
can I discern how many locks there are if there's one central lock? Or
You
if they're
can't
all
tell
separate?
from where you are right now. You couldn't do an investigation check if you want to spend a few minutes more looking. But you haven't really gone all the way around the altar or anything, right? Because all you did was kind of jump over there and try to
Yeah,
unlock him.
I am gonna roll. I'm gonna see if I can figure this out a little bit more. Investigation, you said?
Yes, please.
Oh, 7.
You can't really tell. It looks like the chains all sort of go to a central place under the altar, but you can't see anything under there.
Okay.
But I can try to use it once and see if that does the trick. But no
Yeah.
guarantees.
You want to jump over here? If
sure.
I like hold my hand out and like get ready to like grab him when he jumps over, can I help him?
Sure. Yeah. You
Okay.
you can do that no problem.
Okay.
He doesn't even need to roll to do that.
Perfect.
Since you're already over there. So you're gonna strike that chime on something?
Yeah.
On what?
I'll strike it on the chain.
Okay. You hit the chain, and it sends out a pure tone, and that tone reverberates off the walls of the room, and the little goblin that's tied up is trying to, you could see him like trying to cover, he's trying to like put his shoulders up and try to lay his head so that the sound doesn't reach his ears, because his hands are tied so he can't cover his ears, but it's pretty obvious that he is trying to get away from the sound. He doesn't like it. The chains start vibrating and unlock. And
from all of his.
they unlock
thing?
from the bottom of the altar,
Uh-huh.
and the bottom of the chains sort of come out, and now they're hanging down off of his arms and legs. So the manacle part that was attached to his wrists and ankles didn't come off. They're still attached to his body, but the lock where the chain was attached under the altar has now disengaged.
That's serviceable.
Yeah, that's something. Can I kind of like sit the Hokka up? Does he look hurt other than the crab limbs?
I mean, he's in pretty bad shape. He's emaciated. He's obviously tired. He has sort of small cuts and bruises on large portions of his body.
I'm gonna cast a quick cure wounds.
Okay.
And afterwards offer my water skin.
Okay. Are you gonna do that right now while he's sitting on the altar, or are you gonna move him away? What's your plan?
I would like to move him away, but I'm a little concerned about him making that jump. But maybe if we all help him get over, it would be okay. I would like to get away from this altar.
Okay. That's going to require everybody to help. So Khonnos will have to quit fishing around in the boiling mud.
Okay. I'll come over and help assist with this.
I'm kind of like pulling all the chains into like one arm and then like kind of hoisting the Hokka up in the other. And
Okay.
then I'm gonna try and like toss the chains over if they're long enough so that they're already over there and not weighing him down as much.
Okay. Marcel, what are you doing?
Thinking I'm way too small to help with catching someone. uh, I'm just gonna watch for now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm just watching.
Okay.
Keeping an eye on the goblin friendo in the back, just in case, but he's still under the charm, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So with some trouble, you get the Hokka off of the altar.
Okay.
Khonnos, when you get closer to the altar because you're trying to help them out, you get a very strong pull towards that altar, mentally speaking.
Okay.
Very much like the pull that you got when you found the piece of coral that you have, and it has a particular pull that wants you to go in a certain direction. It's very much like that.
Okay. All right. Once we have the Hokka safely across, I'm going to say, hey, let me hop over there. I want to take a look at something, and I'll try to jump over.
Okay. How tall are you? You're like 6 something.
Shorter than that. I'm like 5 something. Yeah.
Okay. You want to give me an athletics check?
Sure. 19.
Okay. Yeah, you jump over there, no problem. So Imran, you do a cure wounds.
Yes, on the Hokka.
He passes out.
Is he breathing?
Yeah, he's
Like,
breathing.
Okay. I don't like that. Can I inspect claws and arms? You said they're like soft.
Mm-hmm.
Can I don't have it prepared, I don't think.
I mean,
Just
to be
kidding.
fair, he's been through a lot. Maybe he
Yeah.
just passed out now that like the pain
I hope
and
so.
everything else.
I hope so.
Maybe he's still breathing and everything, right?
Yeah. It seems like, the small cuts and whatnot, they kind of healed over like
Okay.
like you typically see from your healing
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna take off my cloak and kind of fold it into like a pillow and just kind of set him aside.
Okay.
And keep a very close eye, but also keep an eye on Khonnos because he also passed out on us last time. And I'm really low on spell slots, so I'm keeping an eye.
Okay. What's Axley doing during this whole thing?
I'm gonna try to put my little grappling hook on a rope and see if I can fish out my cage, or at least catch it on it.
Okay. Roll me an athletics check, please.
16 plus athletics. 17.
Okay, so you do fish something up. It has the exact same problem that that Khonnos had with the other item that he brought, and that is that it is just caked with mud.
Is it about the right size?
Yeah, but the other one looked basically the right size too.
Okay.
How many crabs do you think they have down there?
I know that's the problem, huh? Can I
And,
stab into it to see if I hit anything metal?
the other question
Um,
is, why are they down there?
well, remember that cage is magical, so it's not gonna respond like metal.
Well,
Once
like
it's when
crab
it's
flesh will be different than
right. Well,
metal.
remember when you activated it, it started as like this circular metal item, but
Yeah.
then when you threw it and you said the activation word or the command word, it sort of morphed into this cage-shaped thing, and then it shaped exactly to the goblin, right?
Yeah.
And attached to him. So
Yeah.
if it
Um,
is still active, it's probably not going to sound like metal if you stab into it. You might actually
Oh.
stab the goblin if that is the goblin.
I don't think he's alive.
I'm wondering if you speak the command word again, would it shut off and maybe just float up to the surface?
It's still made of metal, so I don't think it would float up, right? Is it? It's not. Is it a boiling mud pit? Is it like bubbling and boiling and bringing things up?
It is bubbling and boiling, but you haven't seen anything come up other than what Khonnos fished out.
Yeah. I mean, it'll certainly be harder to get if it. I mean, if I speak the command word and it's at the bottom of this pit of mud, is it still going to react to my command word if it's that far out of my sight? And
I mean, it's not that deep. I'd be more concerned about fishing out something that small.
yeah,
The
that's what I
pit is
mean.
pretty
If
big.
yeah, it's
But
easier to get a big item than a small one.
but if we poke this thing, wouldn't it be different if it's like a shell of a crab or goblin flesh?
Mm-hmm.
So if it has a give, then maybe it's the goblin. If it's not, then it's probably another crab.
The other thing we can do is come back later. If I take some time to prepare a locate object spell, I can probably pinpoint where it is in there, and then we can fish it out. But
that could work.
Would take me a long rest to get that prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So we could come back if we really, really wanted to.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I have the scroll that has the mud shape spell on it.
Mm-hmm.
Would that allow me to like empty that pool of mud?
I think the pool is too big. It's pretty large. Remember, each of those squares on that map was 10 feet.
Can I have the mud like move out of the way, just like a cylinder down, so that we can find it, and then maybe hook onto it? Like part the mud.
How big of an area does that let you affect?
That's what I'm looking up. Basically a 5-foot cube.
That's not big if it's that. I mean, poking your trident down into it. How deep did it go?
The trident did not hit the bottom.
Well,
I could try to make the trident a little bigger in a minute.
Yeah, what are you doing over there, Khonnos? What did you want to look at?
Well, now that I'm over here, do I see anything especially unusual or interesting about this altar at this point?
Yes, it's alive.
Okay. This is definitely not just a hunk of coral. This thing is living and breathing somehow, which surprises me a little bit to see something this large that's out of water and still alive.
And you see the area where Imran had hit and you see that there's blood dripping from it, but coral doesn't bleed blood.
Right. I'll just kind of like brush my hand across the bleeding area and try to just wipe the blood off.
Yeah, it just keeps dripping out from a crack.
This should not be bleeding. Okay. I will take the coral piece out of my own trident and just kind of hold it up near the bleeding area and see if that changes anything or has any effect.
Roll
And
me
I'll
a
say, go ahead.
roll me a dexterity save.
Okay. I was going to say, I was doing something. I'm saying, is this it? Is this you? And then interesting things happen because I got a 10 on the dex save.
You all see a large spike-like protrusion suddenly jut out of the coral and slam into Khonnos, and he falls into the boiling pit of mud.
I can't run up and see if I can tackle him to the other side before he falls in.
You can give me a strength check or actually an acrobatics check to see if you can catch him before he goes all the way in.
Strength or acrobatics, or just acrobatics?
Acrobatics.
Better hope for a miracle. Okay, 15.
Okay, so you grab onto him so that he doesn't get fully submerged.
Okay.
He still takes 4 points of damage,
Okay, that's not bad.
and you can help him sort of crawl out.
Yeah, I am pulling him. I do not have that many spell slots left. Please don't die.
Spits up a little mud, and then just was like, "That shouldn't have happened. This is your home, isn't it? Why would you lash out at me like that?"
Khonnos, when you look back at the coral altar, you don't see a coral altar. You see a enormous dog-shaped creature with spikes coming out of the fur around its neck and throat area, and near its ankles, and on the crest of its back. Just for a very brief moment.
Do I recognize what that might be?
You can roll me a. What kind of a check would that be? It's gonna be a. Hold on, let me look up and make sure.
For something that you seem connected to, it doesn't really like you.
Yeah, you can make a nature check.
Okay, nature 12.
You don't know the name of it, but you have seen it in dreams and visions before.
Okay, let's back away from this. This does not seem. I don't know what this is, but it looks like it's something that somehow has been maybe transformed into this, or had its shape altered, and doesn't seem happy about being in this state. Either way, let's just back off.
I'm making sure everybody gives this thing a wide berth.
Yeah.
I am patting Axley on the shoulder. We will find it later. I don't like this thing, and I don't like you near this thing. Let's get back.
Actually, are you poking the thing with your sword? Did you decide?
The big lump.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot. I don't have a big stick that I got from earlier. up above? I think we did, right? There were the rods that were used up above for.
I mean, I can take my sword and try.
I thought there were rods that we got, like large sticks, but okay. Either way, I mean, I fished something out, so I'd like to see if this is it.
I'll poke it with my sword.
I'm gonna prep a sacred flame at it in case this
Honestly-
thing decides to attack.
Yeah.
Holding a sacred flame.
When Marcel sort of pokes it, it kind of rolls to the side, and one part of it that has already started to dry, some of the mud sort of cracks off, and it looks white underneath.
That's not a crab. Also, it rolled, so it's spherical, like actually spherical, not just covered in mud spherical. All right, maybe it's worth cleaning off. We'll spend some time cleaning it off like we did the last one.
Do you
Okay.
think this mud pit was always here, or was this created
Um,
by like?
when you clean that off, you have an egg that is about foot and a half from apex to base, and probably about a foot wide at the widest portion.
What kind of creature
Uh,
would lay an egg in the mud?
Well, maybe the Hokka. I mean, we were looking for their incubation area. Maybe the mud pit is their incubation area, but I don't know if there's a Hokka inside of this or some kind of mud creature.
True.
Kind of a 50-50 at this point.
Mhm.
Might have started like a Hokka,
Well, we don't want to insult them by
breaking
bringing
an
back
egg.
one of their eggs.
I mean, we could take it back to the village and see what they say.
Yeah, well, I guess it wouldn't hurt. All
But
right, so
also,
we.
if we take the egg away from something warm and it gets too cold, do you think it'll die? And do you think we'll be in trouble for killing something?
They've been
But they said
dying for ages.
Yeah, they said in generations they haven't had any kind of a birth.
Okay.
And to be fair, I think there's a more than 50% chance that whatever's in that egg has been mutated into whatever foul magic is making shit here.
Okay, fair.
I mean, my instinct would be to break the altar, but I also don't want to necessarily kill Khonnos.
Thank you. Yeah, no, whatever it is, it's something that
Fair.
it's something else. And there's one thing I can do. There's one more thing I'm curious to try, but I want to do it when we're out of this room.
So our mission isn't really done yet, though, because this place still isn't safe with that mud thing around. So we need to figure out where that thing went, kill it, and make sure nothing else can form. Nobody
Well,
else comes through.
my knowledge of magic is very tenuous, but what if it's some kind of like guardian that was activated because we were intruding here and now it's just gone because whatever. But my point is, it may not be something that can be destroyed. It may just be something that automatically forms in this room. There's enough mud to summon more of those things.
True.
But again, we don't know if it's something was naturally here or it's something that
Right.
was transplanted.
Um. Our Hokka friend isn't awake, is he?
You can try to wake him up.
Would anybody be able to translate if we woke this one up and tried to talk to him? Because that would be probably the most helpful thing to do at this point. Get some information on this place.
Depends on what languages he speaks, but I could also try to speak to him mentally,
I would
like
imagine
like we did with Lucanius.
yeah. I would imagine he would still be able to speak Hokka. But I don't think any of us know Hokka. I know Aquan and Common and Dwarvish.
I
happen.
mean, we could try Aquan. Did that work with the other Hokka? Did the other Hokka speak Aquan? Yeah, they did. Some of
Did
them
they?
did, at least.
We can try it.
Yeah,
I go over.
the translator spoke Aquan, and
Right.
the one that you first met that was on your ship, he spoke halting Aquan.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna go over with my water skin and kind of just pour it kind of by his mouth, and just kind of tap him on the cheek.
Okay. He wakes up pretty quickly.
Okay. I do speak Aquan, so I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna say sorry to wake you up, but we do need information. We also need to get out of here at some point in time. Can you understand me?
He nods.
Okay. What's your name?
He looks at you, and he sort of makes a motion as if like come in closer.
We don't have much trust to go around, it seems.
I guess I kind of lean in a little bit, very hesitantly.
He points to his mouth, and he
Mhm.
opens his mouth, and you see that he has no tongue.
Oh, jeez.
Ask him if this is the Hokka egg chamber.
Well, first of all, I apologize for what's happened to you here. We're gonna do our best to get you out. Maybe at some point in time I can help with that, but not right now. Do you mind if we ask you some yes or no questions that you can answer?
He sort of shrugs.
We were sent by your leader to investigate and eradicate whatever's been causing issues.
He shakes his head no immediately. He points to himself and points to the room and shakes his head no.
I look back at the group.
Does that mean this isn't the egg chamber? I say in Aquan.
He puts both hands up as if to say move them as if to say no, you misunderstand, but his hands are chained, so he only moves them a little bit and then kind of puts them back down. He points to the egg over on the side.
Is that a Hokka egg?
He nods.
Should we leave it in the mud or take it with us? Should we leave it in the mud?
He nods yes.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna roll it back in the mud. Gently.
It's pretty heavy.
I'm pretty
Let's
strong.
put it in a
No, I'm
different
just saying,
pit
like,
so
you
that we don't
notice
have
it's
to-
No, I know.
pretty heavy. Yeah. Sorry, David, what'd you say?
Let's put it in a different pit so we don't have to fish it out again.
We'll put it in the other
On the
side,
other side of it, yeah.
wherever the goblin fell in. As soon as I get that locate object spell, we'll be fine. I just need that locate object spell.
I mean, knowing there's eggs in there, we have to be very careful with the trident too, because we don't want to.
Yeah, don't poke
one, yeah.
break, please. Well, the other thing is maybe the Hokka are like able to withstand the heat, and maybe they can fish it out. Because if their eggs are hatched in it, I would imagine that they would be able to. Another topic for another time.
Yeah.
I go back
Um,
to speaking.
That actually
ahead.
gives me a question. Is this pit always bubbling and this hot?
He points at himself and shakes his head no, but then he points to the pit and shakes his head yes.
Okay, so he wasn't always that way, but the pit has always been like that. This is
I
ridiculous.
thought he meant like the adult Hokka can't take the boiling
Can't
mud,
take
but
it. Okay,
but the boiling mud is like that for their offspring.
I'm really bad at charades, you guys.
Let me
Um,
let me try a little more
Okay, please
direct if you
do.
want,
I
and I'll
back
start
off.
using awakened mind communication with him, and I'll ask him to start. How long have you been down here?
Right then, Bolem says, Oh, you can speak with other creatures in your brain?
In my head or out loud?
He says it out loud.
Okay.
We hear all of this?
Yes.
Good.
He says, What took you so long trying that? I don't understand what the holdup was. Ask it what the ritual is to open that gate back up.
One thing at a time. That it's on the list. And I'll
Don't
just
have silence prepared.
and I'll. Anybody got a bag of holding? We could tuck this in for a minute.
I don't think I have them. I think Axley has them.
Actually has both bags of holding.
Yeah, did we leave them on the ship? Did we put stuff in them on the ship? I thought they were.
Oh, I don't know. Did you? You might have.
I don't think we specifically talked about how we were divvying them up.
I don't think so.
Well,
That's okay.
look into that later. All right, so yeah, just focus back on the Hokkas and again, kind of repeat the question if I need to. How I can't remember last one. How long have you been down? How long were you down here?
He looks at you and he's like puzzled for a second, and then he thinks, I'm not sure. It's been a long journey to get here. I'm not from this island.
What's your name and where are you from?
My name is, let the DM look it up. My name is,
Had we heard the Hokka talk about other clans?
I think so. Because wasn't our little friend a gift from another clan?
Oh,
Jobu
right.
did come from another clan, yes.
Okay.
My name is Taga Cliffrunner.
I am Khonnos. I apologize for communicating with you like this. It may be uncomfortable, but it seems the best way for the time being.
It is more comfortable than trying to speak with no tongue.
Okay.
Fair. What were the goblins doing with you?
I suppose using me to power whatever dark ritual they were casting.
All right. Why did you?
I'm a shaman in the Cliffrunner clan, and I was a shaman. I shall not be again. With no tongue.
We were asked to come down here to try to free the breeding pits and the breeding chambers. That big mud creature, is that something that lives here, or is that something that doesn't belong here?
The goblin made that. I would guess with the goblin gone, that won't come back either.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And I'm relaying all this to everyone else and having this conversation.
It
Okay.
was probably just a summons then.
Could you ask if those were the only creatures, beings, people that he interacted with? Is there anybody else we need to worry about?
Yeah, I'll ask him. Is there, other than the goblins in here, was there anybody else in this temple that you saw?
Here, no. They transported us here in a teleport circle.
Oh, the one we destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got rid of that, so they may not be coming back.
Do you know where you were before? Where did they take you before you came here?
They stole me from my home.
Was it goblins that stole you or some other humanoid?
I'm not really sure. There were humans, but the goblins, they're the cruel ones. The humans left. Once they took me, the humans left and the goblins took control of me and we teleported from there.
Hmm.
Did the goblins change your hands like that?
That happened when he was casting the gate ritual.
Weird.
And he leans back and he points at his back and you see little stubby spikes starting to grow out.
Do they look like the spikes that were that came out of the coral?
Yeah.
I'll ask him, do you know anything about that large coral altar? Has that always been here?
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we might need information. We might need to bring the Hokka from the village nearby to see what they say has changed from this location, but that's something we'll have to ask them.
Okay.
I mean, we can guess all we want as to how much of this has changed from how the Hokka usually have it, but if we actually bring one of the Hokka from the village, though, it'll be a bit quicker.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you guys want me to ask him? We should ask him.
Don't think so.
Do we know how long he's been here? Like, no, he
wasn't sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we should bring the actually that's someone else we can question. And I look over at our friend Goblin.
Yes.
He might know how long it's been.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right.
I think Axley needs to speak to him because Axley's his best friend right now.
At this point, do we know how long we've been in this chamber? Do we know kind of what time of day it would be?
Since
You've only been in the temple a couple of hours.
It's kind of what I thought.
Maybe 3 hours, maybe.
Okay.
And you left the village at first dawn. So
Yeah.
So our guide should probably still be somewhere.
I was
at
gonna
a
say, do you
safe
think he's still
distance.
around?
He's probably at a safe distance from this area, waiting to see if we come back.
Maybe. Because I thought we kind of sent him home.
Do you
Yeah.
remember if you said he was going to wait or go back to the village?
I think we
So-
told him to wait some time, and if we don't show up, and he thinks we're dead, then he can go back. Or,
Well-
if he sees everything explode, and then, yeah, just go.
Can I ask the Taga if he knows what ritual the goblin was casting or trying to cast?
no. I know nothing of it other than it's there. He sort of points to the wall where you see the writing.
And it's
Ax-
the same thing that we've seen before.
Yeah. Axley, you want to interrogate your friendo?
Does he seem like he's open to questions?
I
Is
mean,
he amenable to me asking him questions?
he's charmed, right? Didn't you charm him?
It's not charm. It's what's it? Suggestion.
Oh, suggestion. I mean, no one has acted aggressively toward him since you suggested he just write things, other than when you tied him up.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's hard to say if he's open to questions or not.
Okay, so he's not charmed to think anyone's a friend. He was just charmed to write.
He's just
things.
compelled to write.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was suggested to him that the best course of action right now would be to write, I will stop
Yes.
being a blue-skinned, nasty evil wizard.
Evil wizard, yeah. So it's probably better just to take him out of here and get him back to the village where we are safe and we can rest and figure out how to best question him. Because it's going to take more spells for me to compel him to speak what's going on.
I mean, true, unless he wants to be helpful anyways. You want to be helpful, right, goblin friendo?
You want to roll persuasion?
Sure. I lost my sheet because I was looking for something. Oh wow, that was so high. Persuasion, you said?
Yeah.
14.
He nods at you and puts a thumb up. His hands are tied, but he puts a thumb up.
So how long have you guys been down here?
Weeks.
And why did you all decide to do that like gate spell right now?
It was time.
How do you know when time is?
Boss tells me.
Oh. How does he communicate with you?
He would just say it.
So he comes here and tells you to do it.
He's in there now, and he points to the pit.
Oh, that boss.
Yeah, boss.
Yeah, that boss that had all the answers.
Well,
Boss has all the answers. That's what he says.
might want to look at that. Emran, you might want to prepare to speak with Dead as well. So you can figure it out.
Actually, looking at that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna put that there as well. When we come back.
Right.
Oh boy.
So you're just a minion that does follows orders, right?
I prepare things.
Did
do
you
as you're
create
saying.
that mud monster that has now disappeared?
No, boss did that.
But you can cast magic too, right?
A little bit. I'm not very good yet, he says. He used to say.
Yet.
Now that he's gone, I'm the boss now. He kind of smiles a little bit.
Emeren's back in the corner, like trying not to cackle.
While they're talking with the goblin, can I take maybe about 5 minutes to just try to meditate on my robe of eyes and do change the view?
What do you want to change the view to?
I want to try to perceive through the eyes of the big mud creature and see if it's still around or not.
I've got bad news for you. The big mud creature has no eyes.
Well played.
Rough,
All right. Fair enough.
It's
rough.
one of the only creatures you've met with literally no eyes.
Okay.
This is going
All right.
great.
The goblin says, "Now that I'm the boss, I get to have a dog.
A dog, you say?
We get to pet."
Where's your ex-boss's dog?
Ah, he sent it home, I guess.
Through the teleportation circle?
No, through there. He points at the coral.
That's just an altar.
No. That's where the dog went.
Did Khonnos say anything about what he saw?
I
No.
would have mentioned something about that. Yeah.
No.
Well, technically you said, "I don't have a good feeling about that. We should get out of this room."
Yeah, true. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when they're talking about dogs, then I'll say, yeah. Did you transform the dog into this big slab of coral here, or was that always here? Because I saw a dog trapped in it when I touched it, and then it bit me.
Yeah, the dog. It's there.
Bad
It's
doggo.
still there.
If we wanted to release it, how would we do that? And I stress if.
Do you want to ride it?
Not if it's going to bite me again.
Oh,
At hurt.
How did old boss control the dog?
he had an amulet.
Oh, good.
Oh,
That's probably at the
Ugh.
bottom of the pit.
one decision has never bitten me in the ass so much in D&D.
Oh, it's not over.
Oh, I'm sure.
The hits just keep coming.
Right. We're
So
You
what
can
was the
keep-
plan?
You
Why
can
were
keep
you
trying to
why were
fish
you-
things out.
I'm gonna ask him, why were you opening the portal? What was the plan? What was the end game?
That's how Samasha shows us the bounty.
what bounty?
The bounty of the blue plateau. The blue plate. Plateau, plate, whatever. The blue plate. Lots of food. I guess.
I don't know what's happening.
Lots
Do
of
you ever think
power.
maybe-
Then
do you
we
ever
get
think
to.
maybe you're the food?
No.
Maybe
Gotta read the
maybe
fine print.
yeah, maybe boss was gonna feed you to the blue plate.
No. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. I I was gonna get to be the boss after that one was done, and then I can summon my own.
Summon your own what?
My own
Dog?
big gate. And then we all go through the gate. And then we have power.
Why are they so obsessed with the blue plate plateau? Are they like making an army on the blue plate?
We get to have power beyond our wildest dreams.
Do you know who Laralac is?
Laralac. Laralac is the leader. He gives the power.
Yeah, this all sounds like typical like cultist
Right.
propaganda.
Yep.
He says, "Bring forth watery souls. We'll live, and then he joins us, and we get power. Because Shamasa said it, or something. Foretold something. Shamasa."
Okay. So you sacrifice watery creatures in return for power. Maybe?
No, all the creatures volunteer.
Somehow I don't think that's right.
That's how they get the power.
And do they get crab hands or crab claws as part of that?
Not unless they're not really true believers. Like that one.
Seems like he wasn't willing.
Well, yeah, that's what happens.
Okay.
Huh. So, I have a question. Did your boss or anywhere around here have a bunch of like amethysts?
That's the amulet.
Ah, fuck me over. Okay, that makes sense.
Alright, this is fine. What?
Do you have any spells that could move that mud so that we could get your boss out of the mud?
Why would I want to take the boss out of the mud?
Well, we'd certainly want to give him a proper
Well,
Proper
because you're the
funeral.
boss. You're the boss. You need his magic amulet.
You can't be the
That
boss
too.
without the amulet. You realize this.
that too.
But I thought I would just become the boss because he's gone.
But
No,
you need the boss's power.
Yeah,
you
to do
can't.
all,
You can't be the boss without the amulet.
Yeah, that'll let you do all the cool stuff he did.
It's how you get your dog.
I guess we gotta get some buckets.
Amethyst is the master. One shard to concentrate. We're not. We really need to get that body back, but we're not going to get it out until we rest.
I say we go back.
Yeah, I think we bring our new friend here and
Yeah. Bring both
Help.
friends.
help the other guy to go back.
Yeah.
The other Hokka can help take care of Taga.
Mhm.
Another option is when we come back, maybe we can use the water elemental to
That's a good
get
idea.
down into that pit.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
good idea too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. I don't know how well it'll.
You might as well try it now. See if you can summon it now, and then if it
Yeah,
doesn't work,
sure.
you can come back.
I'll bring out the what I called here the bowl of watery servant, and fill it with water and call out the activation word.
When you take it out, the goblin goes, "Oh, I like that."
Yeah, this one's mine. Hands off.
Put mud in it.
We all just had the same reaction. We all just kind of froze. Is that a is
I mean, I'd control it, so probably.
yes?
But is
Good
mud going to
try.
help us if we have a mud elemental?
But a mud elemental can survive in the.
Oh, it could go in the boiling mud
Yeah.
and fish it out. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. Water elemental might just get boiled away in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
worth
it's-
trying.
Fuck it, let's do this. I'll go and scoop some of the boiling mud into it.
What do you scoop it with? Or are you gonna
You-
like?
Yeah, just like scoop it. Like a-
Okay. Then what?
Look at my party. Do you really think this is a good idea?
It's better than it's worth a try.
Wait,
at
when
this
we
point.
filled it with water, the symbols, the thing on the side started to move, right? Is it
Yeah.
doing the same thing now?
You can't tell because it's full of mud.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna prep the sacred flame.
Yeah, that's fair too. I'll stand on the other side of where we have the Hokka just in case. Well, here goes nothing, and I'll call out the. I think servant was the activation word, wasn't it? I think it was servant. I'll call out servant.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mud jumps out of the bowl and it forms into a humanoid shaped creature with hair of mud that's sort of flowing, almost like waves. And
It works.
it's just standing there.
Okay. You said humanoid shape, so it's like 5-6 feet.
Yeah, it's rough humanoid shape. It's almost like a Gumby shaped creature.
Okay. I will tell it to go into the mud pit and recover the goblin body that's inside the pit.
Okay. It walks into the boiling mud.
We all watch. Waiting.
Everybody's
See what's gonna come out.
waiting with bated
Okay,
breath.
I
Yep.
just want to say we need to take very special care to make sure no one on the ship mistakes that bowl for a potty.
Oh god. Yeah.
I don't think I'm leaving this around so people can just like grab it.
And don't leave it in the kitchen either. Unless we want a soup broth elemental.
That might not be a bad thing.
Tadius might like that.
Soup that'll serve itself.
Yeah.
After about 10 minutes, you see the mud creature sort of come out of the mud, and it puts something on the bank, and then it goes back under. And then it comes up again, and it puts something on the bank, and then it goes back under.
How many goblins did we throw in there?
And then it comes up again, and it puts something on it. And in about 10 or 15 minutes, it has put things all the way around. And then it comes up again, and it's got it, and it's just kind of standing there waiting. It's sort of floating in the middle of the mud.
There was a lot of goblins in there.
Are we
but
sure they're all goblins, or
Well,
can
I
it
asked it to-
tell?
I asked it to take the goblin out, so I'm assuming they're at least goblins and not something else.
What does it know, or does it just grab something and pull it out? Does it have the ability to discern what it's pulling out?
Can it clean them off? Can it just kind of like scoop the mud off of it? And can we see what they are?
Maybe? I'll ask it to clean one of them off.
You see blue skin under it.
It's definitely a
Okay.
goblin.
And your goblin friend who's tied up says, "Watery souls! That's my army!"
He did say, yeah, that like they were basically sacrificing believers as well as non-believers to
Yeah.
the altar.
Put them on the altar!
No.
Oh. Let's not do that.
But that's the
No.
next step!
We're not completing the ritual for you. Sorry, buddy.
Well, why not? But we would have power beyond our wildest imagination.
That's exactly why not.
How
Actually,
come
I
that
tried
doesn't sound good to you?
How many others have completed this ritual?
And have they ever come back?
I'm sure countless others have completed the ritual just fine.
He's no idea. Okay.
Actually, you could try turning your metal ball off now that all the goblin bodies are out.
Yeah, see if it falls off one of them.
See which one. Okay, have them put that last
Well,
one on the side.
You actually don't know that all of them are out.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
All you know is he ran out of space.
Oh.
Oh. We'll
Oh, yeah,
move
they're
them
cool.
away. Oh god, this place is okay. Well, look, if this actually is the pit that the Hokka use for their kids, we may want to get rid of the goblins inside.
Fair. Yeah.
All right,
Um,
let's make some space and see if our
Stack
mud
'em up.
friend-
Yep, start hauling bodies.
I'm gonna start prodding it with my mace and just like shoving bodies like out of the way.
Okay.
Same. Trident just. I'm like shuffleboarding the things out of the room with my trident at this point.
If he keeps bringing these up, are you still going to keep making room for them? I mean, I guess so. Remember, your servant will last for an hour.
Yeah.
I'll ask our tied up goblin. How many are down there?
My army full.
Yeah,
Our
I think
watery souls.
probably a lot.
Probably a lot.
But
Well,
it should be one of the ones on the top, I would
I was
think,
gonna
right?
say we can try
mean,
it, and
yeah.
then again,
Okay.
worst case scenario, I can locate object, and we can at least find Axley's
I mean,
net.
I don't
I'm
know
just
exactly how.
Yeah, I'm just asking how long you want to let the mud servant keep.
Yeah, you said it took him 10 minutes to start pulling them out, right?
Right, but once he did, he just kept going back under and bringing them up, and
Mm-hmm.
then they were all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's a good idea to get all the bodies out if this is going to be returned to the Hokka as their breeding ground. So I would probably let it go for another like 10, 15 minutes at least.
I'm gonna keep moving bodies.
And then I get
Oh,
kind of curious because I don't know how the spell works, but it probably can't find the amethyst amulet because that would require it just going goblin to goblin and checking just like we would. But if Axley lets go of like says the command word to let go of the ball so that it's separated, maybe it could look for that small spherical thing.
Well, can you ask it? Does it know which one of these is a goblin with a metal cage around it? Like
Is it a visible metal cage? How does the cage?
No,
yeah,
remember, it's a circular metal object, like bands formed in a circle. And when you throw it and you say the activation word, which in this case was caught, it expands out to be a much larger ball. But then when it starts, he's got an intended target. When you activate it, it has an intended target. And as it gets closer to that target, it changes its shape. It turns into like a cage, like a traditional like flat bottomed sort of dome topped cage. But then as it's about to hit the target, it changes its shape to fit the shape. At least this is what it did when it captured the goblin. It changed shape to fit the goblin exactly. And then it kind of seals itself to the goblin. And it's magic. It's not actually metal anymore at that point. It's not like the goblin was sitting in a cage. He was just restrained by the magical element of that particular item. And so I think the way that I described it last game, when it actually hit, it was sort of like when you see an old cartoon and a cartoon character runs through a wall and the wall has a cutout the shape of the cartoon character. That's kind of what it did. It kind of changed its shape to match exactly the form of whatever position that creature was in, and then it adhered to it and it won't let it move from that form. That's why it was restrained.
Wait, so that means if the creature was standing and in like combat position, we should be able to distinguish which of these mounds looks less like a corpse and more like a statue.
Possibly.
Because
They all just kind of come out like these enormous balls of mud, like these.
Yeah, but as the mud drips off, like it should pretty easily be able to tell which one's a body and which one's a statue of someone trying to cast a spell.
Yeah. So right now he's after about you said a half hour more, right? You said 10 minutes and then maybe half hour after that. So now it's been 40 minutes. There's at least 50 of these things out.
Oh boy. Lots of watery souls. This is going to be a lot of cleanup for the Hokka.
And it's still bringing them out?
Yep.
It hasn't stopped?
Nope.
Well, I eventually tell it
unless
to
you ask it to, yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask it to stop, and I mean, I'll look at Axley. why don't you just release the ball, see if it falls off one of these?
Well, based on, I mean, I don't know if we'll see anything because it's in a big wad of mud, and if it so perfectly mirrors the body, and it's just going to reduce down to a small size sphere, it may all happen underneath the mud. We won't even see it.
Yeah, but we have 50 bodies out here, so if it detaches from one of these, it'll possibly make a sound, but at the very least we'll see the movement of it detaching and like falling off of the body.
I'm going to ask the goblin: are there more than 100 bodies in that pit?
5,000.
Oh my god.
That's what they said we need. 5,000.
Okay, that's
And how
what we
many did you
need.
get? How high did you get?
I'm gonna say since the spell was ready, they got there.
I think we should just wait till we can come back with a locate object spell
Big
at this
is this
point.
pit?
Yeah, this is an awfully deep pit. I think
Yeah,
it
that's
fit
Yeah,
at least
I
50
know.
goblin bodies in it.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of bottomless.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I'd still suggest releasing the cage to see if we have it outside. If
Yeah.
not, then we can still cast locate object on it.
And if we get a description of whatever this amulet is, and it's already released from the body, we can get that object, and then I can recast it for the amulet and find.
Okay,
what's his
so
face?
maybe if I release it, maybe if we don't see anything here, maybe we can tell the elemental to find the little metal sphere.
Yeah.
Do that.
So okay, I'll try to release it.
So you have to say the deactivation word.
Yes.
What's the deactivation
Which is,
word?
I think it's, let's see, wasn't it the same thing?
Release.
It was same command word, so it's caught.
Okay. Roll a perception check.
All of us?
Everybody.
We're all looking. Yeah.
19 plus perception
12.
plus 4, so 23.
21.
Nice.
18.
So everyone except Khonnos sees that one of the forms that is covered in mud shakes and moves after Axley says the command word.
Sacred
It's
flame. No kidding.
what'd you say?
I'll go over to it.
Said sacred flame.
I'll go over to it and try to fish it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna run over to it too.
Okay. The cage is, I mean, now it's just metal bands again. It's just sitting on top of a glob of mud now.
Hey,
Okay, I'll
look at
pick
that.
it out. Then I'm gonna walk over to Khonnos and I'm gonna wipe it off on his shirt.
Fair enough.
I'll start trying to clean off this.
So presumably there's an amulet in there too.
Yeah,
I'm
gonna start
I'm
cleaning
looking-
off this body.
Okay.
Same. I'm gonna look for the amulet and any keys I can find to get those shackles off of Taga.
Okay. If you spend 10 or 15 minutes cleaning off this entire goblin, you find a small belt pouch that has 15 gold pieces in it and a key that looks like it's made of the same metal, which is basic steel, that the shackles are made of, the manacles.
Okay, I grab that.
And you do find an amulet around its neck. It was hidden under its tunic.
Okay.
An amethyst amulet.
It is the very similar eyeball shape that you are familiar with spikes coming out of it, and the pupil part of the eyeball is a large amethyst gem.
But it only has one amethyst on it.
Correct.
It has one. I remember that book that I had.
Yeah, the
The
amethyst
amethyst
wards.
Yeah, master. I don't know. I'm gonna run over to Taga and unlock all those chains.
Okay. You notice as you're unlocking them that it already looks like his crab parts are turning back into Hokka parts.
That's good.
Nice.
I wonder what's happening to Lucanius.
I'll clean off the amulet with a bit of shape water and some water from my canteen, and then I'll pocket that.
Okay.
So, hold on. If we just cut off this thing's head, and later we want to cast Speak with Dead, does that work? Or do I need the whole body? Trying to look for the
That
to
is quite the
corpse?
question.
It says the corpse must still have a mouth and can't be undead.
I think you just need the head.
I think I just need the head.
It needs to be the full head. Like if you don't have the lower, it needs to be able to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's a goblin. It's not that big.
I know, but it's. I think we
Let's
can
just
have this.
take a head back.
We could have the other goblin carry the dead goblin if we really wanted to.
Yeah. Because Mud Friend only has like 10 minutes left before
Yeah.
he plops back
So
into the
let's
bowl.
have it carry it as far as we can get. At least it'll get us out of this.
Yeah,
temple, right?
we can have it carry it to the outside at least.
Yeah.
And eventually we're gonna have to. That's a problem for the Hokka. They have a lot of bodies to remove from here. My big question is if there's all these bodies in that pit, like that might be why their thing doesn't work to actually hatch the babies.
It's
Right.
just not enough room.
Okay, so we've. Actually, that's a good point. I'm gonna run over to the wall with script on it
Mm-hmm.
and just deface it as much as I can.
Okay.
Just kind of scribble.
It's going to
just
take a
my
while
mace.
because it's
Okay.
all over, other than the circular area where the gate was.
Yeah.
Are you trying to write over it or like chisel it
No,
out?
I'm taking my mace and like literally smacking chunks out of it to see just at least just like a portion of it so that it can't be immediately
Used again.
usable. Something
Okay.
like that.
Are the words like chiseled into the wall?
Yeah, but it's the Hokka's claystone structure, so it's more like a layer of clay that they made impressions in.
Mm-hmm.
Now the area where the words were written and as the ritual was being cast, that the ones that glowed, that is completely dried and it's like stone because of the magic that was infused in the words as the ritual was being cast. But the parts that it didn't get to are still very soft clay. They're easy to deface.
So we could deface like the second half, the bottom half that wasn't
Correct.
activated.
Right. You can also deface the top half. It just takes a while
Just
because
takes a
it's
while.
more like stone.
I'll have our wait, no, yeah, so we'll have the mud elemental take the main goblin up to the upper level of the temple.
The dead goblin.
Yeah, the dead
Okay.
goblin.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
The other one says, "Bye, boss."
Now I'm the boss.
Oh,
I'm the boss.
I've got the amulet. I'm the boss.
But the amulet was mine. You're supposed to give it to me.
Nope.
You
I
said
found it.
I could have it when you found it.
I didn't say that.
Hacking away at the wall.
Can
I said
like,
you need the amulet to be the boss, but I'm the one that found it,
And,
so that
she's
makes
got the
me the
amulet.
boss.
That's no fair.
mhm.
Now I'll never get a dog.
Can I use Eldritch Blast to help Amarin with her religious vandalism?
Sure.
Just blow away a couple chunks of the rating here.
Yes, you can.
Pew pew.
Okay.
Oh, this is a bad idea, but everyone's looking the other way. I'm gonna put the amulet on.
Oh no.
Okay. Uh. All right. Hold on a second.
Bad impulsive decisions. Let's go.
No.
Uh. When you put the amulet on, that howling noise, you now hear it in your head. And when you look in the direction where the coral altar was, you see a large dog-shaped creature with spikes coming out of its neck and back and by its feet. And as you look over at it, it looks at you. You need to make a will saving throw, or a wisdom saving throw. Sorry, I keep saying will.
Fun.
Your DC is 15.
Hey guys. The only thing worse than my wisdom saving throw is my strength saving throw. Oh, wow. I rolled a 19.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm low on spell slots. Have I mentioned that?
The creature, the howling noise, sort of shrinks down to an understandable yammering, and you hear it say, "Release me. Release me from my prison. You must release me."
What happens if I release you?
Release me so I can live.
Look at Khonnos, who's hacking up at the wall. I look back at it and I go, how do I release you?
You know how. Activate the portal.
Oh, fuck that shit.
It is easy. You can do it. You are royalty, I see. You
That's none of your business.
You can do it.
No.
Khonnos?
Yeah.
You hear that. No one else hears it. I mean, Marcel hears it, but Imran and Axley, you don't hear any of that.
Super oblivious to it. Just hacking at the wall.
Can I take a break from Eldritch Blasting and think to Bolem? You said something about wanting to fight the howling thing, right?
Yep.
Is that it?
Yep.
I will let everybody know this.
So wait, the altar pup is the howling thing
That's what it seems like.
Or a
that
manifestation
your
of it.
weapon wants to fight?
Yeah.
And
As I
releasing
mentioned in one spell slots.
and releasing
Imran.
Don't worry. I promise I will not do this until we've had a long
Oh
rest.
no, I'm not
Please?
gonna either.
Bolem says, "It's weakened. You can take it. We can do it. You should have valor in your soul."
Do any
Okay.
of us hear this?
I may
You
have
hear
valor in
Bolem.
my soul, but I only have 8 hit points in my body currently.
I'd like to point out, Mr. Overzealous Trident, that your wielder got hurt when we hurt this thing. If you hurt it, isn't it gonna just kill your user?
Of course not. It's weakened. You can take it. I know you can. We must defeat it.
Okay, but why is it that when we hurt the dog, it hurts Khonnos?
Well, how should I know that? But we can defeat it.
Well, it's not the dog right now. Do you think when we open the gate, it like inhabits whatever this is and becomes a different thing?
Oh,
And
that's a
maybe
great idea. Let's open the gate. Open the gate. Open the gate. We can go through. We can go through. We don't have to worry about this one. We'll get the big one.
I don't have a science.
No.
Wait, what big one?
The big one. The actual
Yeah.
howler.
Yeah, this is just the
This is a
on this
puppy.
plane. This is what's bringing it out through. This is like its scout.
Well, we can't do it now, but I also don't feel very comfortable leaving this here, so I guess we're not really done.
Khonnos.
Right here.
Khonnos. Khonnos. We can do this. Open the gate. We can go. You can
I-
open the gate without even doing the ritual. We can do it. Get them the royalty, the royal one. Get them. They'll help us. I promise.
Would you not call me that, please?
What what is meant by the royal
I'm
one?
not
Yeah,
sure
what
why
is
you
it?
would want to hide from that.
Why are they? What does he mean?
I
Royal one.
slowly turn to Marcel. What is the coral talking about?
Someone, everybody actually roll a perception check.
Oh, Jesus. Good.
9.
17.
6.
Who got more than a
Oh.
10?
Do I have to roll too?
Yeah, you should roll too.
Yeah, that was a 9.
Imran's the only one that got more than a 10.
Yeah.
Imran, you see when all of this commotion is going on, you see that the little goblin has sneaked over by the edge of the pool and it's pushing some of the globs of mud back into the pool.
I chuck a sacred flame like right in front of it as it's doing that. Knock it off.
Roll an attack roll.
18.
You hit right in front of it, but right in front of it is where the thing was that it was rolling, and you instantly burn off all of the mud, and that was sacred flame, so it does radiant damage, right?
Uh-huh.
Whatever was under there just turns to ash and crinkles, falls on the ground.
Knock it off.
That doesn't normally happen to corpses, or does it?
I
Am-
don't
am-
think so. We're
Why
gonna
did
go
that-
with it.
Why did? Do you want to do that to the rest?
I mean, it's a cantrip. Chucking sacred flames. Well, do we want to do that right now?
It's just an idea. I mean, and if it'll distract you all from the conversation we were just having, sure.
Oh, boy.
So what's funny is you were all talking and then just sort of out of the blue, Marcel's saying, oh, ignore this. And Khonnos is trying to talk to Bolem. And Imran just turns and goes and shoots a sacred flame. And now everything's quiet. And the goblin goes, oh.
Back to your corner. Sit until the adults are done talking.
But my army!
You
You
want
don't
to
get
join
your
your army?
Play
She
with
can
your
shoot
toys
you,
later.
and then you'll become poof, just like your companions.
Fine. It sort of has a tear running down. And it turns
No
and goes
pity.
to the corner.
No pity. Okay. We're gonna shelf this conversation because Axley did the same thing to me earlier when I asked about his cousin that confronted us. We're all gonna have to sit down and have a little chat.
You didn't ask me about it.
I did. And we
No, you
changed the
didn't.
subject to the talking goat.
Yeah.
I think it was around there. We were talking. We were trying to have a conversation, then we were looking at those rods, and a talking goat came out, and we never finished our conversation.
Weird
Oh.
how those things happen. Anyways, we should
Yeah.
probably get out of here.
Yeah.
Bolem says, I know the perfect exit. Khonnos.
Is it through the gate?
Cast the gate, open it up. We can go through. We can do it. We can do it. You can do it. I know you can. I know you can. You haven't always shown me your most valorous side, but that's okay. I believe that when you are faced with the challenge, you will stand up to it and you will succeed. The coral has told me so. You can do it.
And I will happily face that challenge once we've all recovered.
I'm gonna start gathering Taga up, and start kind of making my way towards the exit.
Okay. He can move much better now that the chains aren't on him.
Fair enough.
Are you going to Sacred Flame the other balls of mud?
Are we coming back? I think we're gonna have to come back.
We are.
Yeah.
But we're taking Goblin Friend with us, so he can't
Oh,
spend
yeah.
a day just shoving everything back in.
For sure.
But maybe do a couple.
Okay.
It just takes 6 seconds per Sacred Flame. There's like 50 bodies.
So as everybody's filing out, I guess I'll just hurl a couple as everybody's leaving, and I'll be the last to leave, and I'll take up the rear.
So what order is everybody leaving in?
I'm probably escorting the goblin out first.
As you're trying to escort the goblin out, you want to make me a dexterity athletics check? Dexterity athletics check. I know that's weird, but
So that would be...
did you beat a 13?
Yes, absolutely. I rolled a 17.
The goblin tries to run away from you, and you catch it by the ropes around his hands. And it says, no, I can't leave. No, this is where I'm supposed to be. I can't
Not
go.
anymore.
Let me
I'm the
go.
boss. I'm the boss, and I say we're leaving.
You're not the boss. Not the boss.
I'd chuck another sacred flame in its direction. Try and burn his toes a little bit.
We did suggest that it stay in this room and ride all over the place. So maybe if that spell ends, it will be slightly more willing to leave.
And then it may be hostile.
True, but there's also 4 of us and 1 of it.
Valid.
It's struggling, trying to get away.
All right. All I have to do is end my concentration and let the spell go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. It's bound really tight.
It's still struggling to get away. I mean, Marcel grabbed onto it, so.
Yeah. I'll drag him as best I can. I'm not very strong, though.
I'll grab the goblin by the scruff after tightening my belt a little bit. Let's go.
No, I need to stay. This is where I'm supposed to stay.
Why do you have to stay?
This is where I stay. I can't go back without having done.
You're not going anywhere.
You're taking me back in there.
Yeah. So?
What will happen if you go back without finishing?
Oh, Laralac won't be happy.
Laralac can't come here because we destroyed his magic circle.
Yeah, he's stuck wherever he is.
Nothing sticks, Laralac.
I'm gonna hope that doesn't actually mean anything, but let's let's force him out.
Okay. He's yelling the whole way. No,
That's fine.
no. You
Alright, I'll
dirty
take a photo.
humans! Dirty humans!
Neither of us are humans, you stupid goblin.
Dirty humans!
Cast a couple more sacred flames and I take up the rear and we head out.
I love the idea of Imran just walking along, casting sacred flame in all different directions.
Pew, pew.
He's still caterwauling. He's just, no, dirty humans, don't leave me, no, let me go back.
Can we knock him out?
I'm kind of thinking the
gag
same
him.
thing,
Or gag him at the very least?
right?
I'm not using my kerchief to do that.
So, you have to go back up that long passageway, and then you're going to end
Mhm.
up in the other room with the altar and the lens.
Yeah.
You're gonna gag him then? So you don't have
Yeah.
to listen to him?
Yeah, I don't want to
Yes,
listen to him all the way back.
Okay.
As we're passing
hmm
the altar on like the middle room, not the one we were in,
Mhm.
but the one we passed coming
Wait,
out. What'd you say?
we need to gag him before getting to that room.
Oh, yes, we do.
I just thought of that.
Yes, we do.
Either gag him or just actually knock him out, because I don't want him in that magical room.
Which one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna tear a piece of my cloak, like a long piece of cloth, and just try to shove it in his mouth and tie it in the back. At least so he's muffled.
You want to roll me a sleight of hand check?
I can try.
Did we do anything? We just ignored the floating.
Oh yeah, do we want
The
to take
lens.
that?
The lens.
Oh,
You're not back in that
that's-
room yet, so.
Yeah, no, but I
that's-
meant when we went down. Did we do? We just left it floating there and
We
kind
did.
of.
we left
Correct.
it floating there.
Yep.
Okay.
It was a 2 - 1, so not a natural one,
Okay. Okay. So you gag him pretty well.
Mhm.
He's like, and then you get
Okay.
to the place where you're about to enter that other room. And you open that door. And when Marcel steps into that room, the amethyst
Took the
amulet starts glowing. And the lens, it was giving off a blue light. Now it's giving off an amethyst one.
Marcel,
hmm.
what did you do?
I did. We could see words when the light was.
And our shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Does someone that's not with the amulet want to try casting a shadow? I'm still hiding behind the altar. Basically, is in the way when we come up, right?
I mean, sort of. It's
It moved aside and then opened the hole in the.
no. Remember, you had to put braziers
Mm-hmm.
into those spots, and then the secret door, the sort of frame of the secret door, became visible.
What the
And-
secret door was? It behind between the altar,
and the
wall
yeah.
behind?
So the altar was about 10 feet in front of 7 to 10 feet in front of the actual walls, and the two braziers were there. So when you put the two braziers, the doors kind of become visible and then slide out and back.
So I can use the altar to not be seen by the.
For the most part, yes, it will not really cast. I mean, the altar is made of coral, so it has,
Right. Yeah.
empty spots in it. But yes, for the most part,
Mhm.
it is
solid enough.
Right.
'Cause I think I can't remember. Double check. Yeah, no, I'm a medium creature, but I'm like 4 feet, so ducking under the altar is not too hard.
Okay. So the lens light is still now emanating
still-
an amethyst light
Yeah.
instead of a blue one.
I mean, that's probably just because it's close to it.
Hmm.
But when we came through here the first time, it showed something on the walls.
Correct. When the light hit Khonnos's shadow was projected back onto the wall, and inside the shadow it said Laralac awaits.
Didn't it
Yep.
do that to all of our shadows?
A couple people, yeah.
Yeah, Imran was the only other person who tried that. Because
So do
Axley
we-
was invisible.
Right. But I think I passed through it as well.
Well, what happened was, remember, everybody was saying, "Oh, it says Laralac here," and then you all said, you said the actual activation phrase, so it stopped doing that, and it showed you the vision.
Right. So does anyone want to cast a shadow and see what it says now, like if it's changed?
Walk out to the light.
Yeah, I'm ready to leave. This place is up to no good.
Yeah, I'll walk through it.
You're gonna walk through and let the shadow hit you, or let the light hit you.
Yes.
Okay. It also now it projects something on the wall, but it does not say Laralac awaits. It says Vade mecum omnia.
Well, I recognize that phrase.
Come with us all. Right? Go with me all. That's what it is. I'm not saying that out loud.
You're not,
Okay.
but the goblin
Oh my god.
Who was leading? Khonnos was leading it.
I was leading him, yeah. I was
moves
the one
his
guy.
head just enough to make the uh the
Can I
cloth
cast a spell?
the
Yep.
cloth loosen,
Yep.
and the goblin says, "Vade mic omnia." What's Axley doing?
If I can't catch him, it's too late. But
Well, what are you gonna do?
just cast sleep on him.
Go ahead and cast sleep.
This is gonna be it because I'm still holding him.
Yep.
Oh, you're gonna make him fall asleep.
Actually, I'm elven.
Oh yeah, you
Yep.
can't fall
Magic
asleep.
cannot put me to sleep.
There you go.
Oh, good. Then you're not taking up 8 hit points of the sleep spell.
Yeah.
So I think it's 5d8, right, or something like that.
Let's see here,
Yep.
sleep. Let's see. It says at higher levels, so when you cast a spell, I'll cast it using a second level slot so that I can get an additional 2d8. So that gives me a total of initial one. 5d8 plus 2d8, so 7d8.
Roll high.
7d8.
I hope you put the like casting area so that it doesn't hit the rest of us.
No, I think I just cast a target, right? Or is it a?
It's an
No,
area.
it's an area.
It's an area. Let's see, it's an area.
It's a pretty big area.
Within a
too.
20. Okay, yeah, 20 feet of a point.
Basically, where everyone is standing.
I mean,
Well,
Khonnos and the goblin went out first, so you could probably target just Khonnos and the goblin.
Well, you're hiding behind the.
Yeah, but we were all like hesitating because of the light, and then Khonnos walked out. Oh, I think Amarin walked out too.
I walked out as well.
Okay.
So what'd you get?
Okay. Well, I haven't rolled, so I need you guys to total it up because I only have one die. So
Oh,
yeah. So keep a tally for me here. First roll 4, 2,
6,
4,
10.
2,
12.
12,
1.
13.
How many rolls is that?
That's 5,
5.
Yeah, 6
19,
and 5.
24.
So that's all right. 7. 11.
He falls asleep, just passes out.
Before or after he spoke?
He spoke the words.
So I guess we find out what happens now.
Not good. Don't like. At
Well,
least we destroyed the
Is
teleportation.
this classical arcane or ecclesiastical arcane? Could
Well,
make a difference.
that's the thing, is that he's a sort of dumb goblin, so he did not pronounce
He definitely did not pronounce that right.
No.
it correctly. So it did not activate anything. But now he's asleep.
Okay.
All right.
That's almost better. I'm gonna sling him over my shoulder. And do we want to take this thing, or we're coming back?
Take what, the goblin?
No,
The
the
lens.
lens.
I mean, as
Well,
long
wasn't
as
it was it difficult to remove? Like remove the last one, didn't you have to like
Yeah.
fight it?
We had to cast a spell that then went haywire and almost
Yeah.
hurt all of us.
Yeah.
I cast Shocking Grasp on it, and I still have the freaking scar from that. I'm not doing
Yeah.
that again.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
say
I
we
say we
come
just
back.
leave it.
Just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, I'm gonna peek over the edge of the altar when it's like not facing me, and I'm just gonna go stop. Pointing
It stops.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now we can at least get through here without it going in circles. I'm
I'll
gonna
point at it.
it.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna point at it again and say deactivate.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Nice.
It does not deactivate.
Damn it.
I mean, the
Alright.
light stays on. It stopped
Yeah.
moving.
Off.
Nope.
Shut down. I'm just gonna sit here yelling at it. Okay, well at least it
Control, Alt, delete.
stopped.
Yeah.
Turn off.
Nope.
Sleep.
None of that
Can
works.
I, with the goblin slung over one shoulder, can I just reach out and tug on it and see if it gives?
You can touch it, and it feels like it's held in place. You're gonna have to put a little more strength into it to dislodge it. It feels like.
Do you
One
want me
hand.
to try and pull it?
I mean, once it gets off, it deactivates at the very least. So I just suck at strength, so I decided to shocking grasp it to deactivate it.
I'll pull on it. I'll see if I can dislodge it.
Okay.
Can I help with this?
Sure. Roll me a strength check with advantage.
To be fair, we were in kind of a hurry last time because it was activated.
Yeah.
Strength is not great. 13.
That's with advantage, right?
Yes.
You pull it off of its imaginary pedestal.
Nice.
Okay. So I got a goblin and a lens.
Does the lens light flicker off?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll carry
Okay.
the lens.
Please.
But your amulet is still shining.
Oh, this thing is glowing?
Yeah.
Curious.
That's good. All right. Lead the way, Your Highness.
Allah, lead the way.
Yeah, are you royal born? Is that what was implied?
Well, now that the goblin's out, I kind of look from what I know, and this is just me conjecturing. The sword, the one that dances around and does all those shiny stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's only supposed to work for Lutrinian royalty.
Ooh.
So the fact that it activates when I do the thing means I'm from the royal bloodline.
Do you not know your past well enough to know if that could be true?
I'm just a sailor.
Were
To
you
be fair-
orphaned, or do you know who your parents were?
I have no idea. I hadn't really thought of that. No, my parents are there. I didn't kill them. That's out of character.
You said you did.
I didn't give him a tragic back story. But I mean, does the Lutrinians now have like a royalty guided? They have more like tribes with like a leader, right?
Correct.
Yeah, like we haven't really bothered with royalty in a while.
In
And
many
you have to remember,
many generations.
yeah, we're not very long lived as a species, and like it's been generations since we've bothered with all that king stuff. So, I don't know why we haven't, but doesn't really matter anymore because we don't really have like a king or queen. So, but yeah, the sword is
You hear Bolem say, "You do now."
Taga's probably like, what the crap are these people doing?
Blood doesn't lie.
The sword is known as the sword of the first ancestor, which means I'm a direct descendant of the first clan of Lutrinians. That's basically what it comes down to. What that means for, I don't know.
Interesting.
I also happen to be born with apparently Tempest magic, so that's probably because of the bloodline. Who knows? I mean, I've learned my magic just by doing it. No one taught me.
Well, we can explore this topic a little more once we're above ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You got a bit of a walk back. That's what makes some conversation.
Sure. All right, I guess I start up the stairs.
Okay. You make it out of the temple with no problem.
Okay. Do we see our guide in sight?
Yes, Jubo is across the field of mud puddles.
Got the goblin slung over my shoulder anyway.
What did you do with the lens?
I was carrying it.
Okay.
Give it to Khonnos.
We're just going to collect lenses now.
I guess.
You make
I
a
don't know
really,
what to do with them.
really large pair of glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Make a bunch of monocles in case we ever run into a beholder. Say, here you go. Please don't disintegrate us.
Is the lens like just clear crystal once it's pulled off its imaginary pedestal?
No, it looks blue. It has a blue tint.
Oh, a blue tint.
Yeah.
So it's not like a purpley amethyst tint.
Right. And the first one has like a yellowish tint, amber colored tint.
Huh. And this one showed us the whole Blue Plateau army.
Mm-hmm.
Curious.
But we also never figured out what would happen if we said the other phrase. So there's still something about it we don't know.
I'd rather not know what happens when you do that. I'd rather not. Yeah. Our new Hokka friend is with us, right?
Yes.
Taga. So we'll wave at our guide. Go, well, for the time being, we've kind of sort of dealt with things down there. It's going to need a lot of cleanup, and I'm not sure exactly how much has changed. But your mud pit's still boiling. We found some eggs. They weren't cracked.
And we found a bunch of goblins who were making a mess of the place and dealt with them.
Kind of slump it off my shoulder and try to
Gently. You don't want to wake
Not
him.
yeah, not like, but I just kind of down on the ground.
And you found a Hokka.
He's a shaman
He,
from
he
another clan.
he does the sort of welcoming hand gestures to the other Hokka, and they exchange whatever welcoming hand gestures. You know that they did a similar thing with you when you first came onto the island.
Jubo, so in that boiling mud,
Yes.
that boiling mud is where you lay your eggs, correct?
No, we lay the eggs outside and put them in after
And put them
treatment.
in.
Yes.
Was there always a bluish purple coral altar in the middle of it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just our incubation pit.
Okay. We're gonna have to
How
get
long?
rid of
How long can the eggs survive? How long are they? Can they be hatched after they've been put in the
They
mud?
incubate for 90 days.
So these eggs that are in there are long, dead, sterile. They're not going to hatch.
Probably not. It's been a while since we've been able to get in there and put fresh eggs and treat them. We don't just lay them and leave them. We have to turn them and take care of them.
Got it. So we also found in those pits a couple of different sorts of bodies. A lot of
What do you mean?
blue goblin bodies, but also crab.
Like that?
Like
And he points down to where you put the other goblin
yeah,
on the ground.
just
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're also probably carrying the body of the other dead goblin.
Oh yeah, that's right. The mud servant
Yeah.
brought that one up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Because it only had 10 minutes left, so.
yeah, it might take some cleanup. And I don't think we're done because that altar is still there, and I don't think it's friendly.
Oh, it's definitely not friendly.
What
And
do you mean the altar is not friendly?
It
What has happened to it? Has it been desecrated?
Well, I don't think it was an altar to begin with.
somebody
Yeah,
else can
there's-
explain it because I never saw whatever you guys were talking about. You're talking about
There-
a dog.
the goblins apparently managed to. We think they trapped some kind of creature, dog-like creature, inside of it, and it wants to be released. But it probably shouldn't be there.
Well, you say you didn't have an altar floating above your pit, so that one's not your altar, it's their altar. We just have to get rid of it. The problem is, it's not really an altar, it's like a dog with spikes, and it's really angry and keeps howling.
I think you
Anyways.
all need to rest.
I agree.
Yeah.
All of this is very confusing. You will have to tell the chief.
Oh, don't worry, it's confusing for us too.
Yeah, we're still wrapping our heads around it.
Did the amulet stop glowing when we left?
Nope.
Oh, great. I'm just gonna shove it in my.
I figured you covered it up after
Yeah.
you saw that it was
I'm just peeking. It's still glowing. It's still glowing.
looking down your shirt every 2 minutes. uh, so Jubo says, "Let us go. It is near time for mid meal. We can rest."
You know, for some reason, I'm not that hungry. Must be all the mud.
Huh. Where was this one? He points
On
at the
the
Hokka.
altar.
They were
Chained.
trying to sacrifice him.
Yeah. They were conducting some kind of ritual to open a portal or gate somewhere to someplace.
He is
And
not.
they were using him as part of it.
He's not from our tribe.
He's from the Cliff Runner tribe.
He's refusing to speak to me.
He can't speak. They removed his tongue.
You could see the horrified look in his face.
He was a shaman, so I'm guessing they had to make sure he couldn't cast magic.
That is horrific.
Yes.
I wonder if there's something our chief can do. Let's go back to the village.
Okay.
So he leads you back. It takes quite a bit longer than it took to get there because you don't get to ride the wave on the way back.
So are we
Unfortunate.
carrying the dead body as well?
I'm assuming so, unless you
Okay.
left it there.
I have the sleeping one.
Yeah, you have the sleeping one. I mean, Khonnos can carry the other body.
Yeah.
How big is the lens? Like,
It's about a foot in diameter.
okay, so I could carry the lens.
I mean,
Okay.
you have the other one in your pack.
I don't know if we want to put them together. If I have a bag of holding, I can put it inside.
Have it. I feel like I would have left it on the ship. To be
Okay,
fair.
then you left it
I'm
on the
not-
ship. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's big enough that I don't think I would want to carry it in the pack while we're going.
Okay.
Just in case it cracks or something. Yeah, I probably would have left it on the ship.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll carry this one back to the. Probably hand it off to Axley at some point, being like, "Your turn."
Okay.
The two small ones.
So you get back to town and the whole entire all of the Hokka are lined up sort of in the about half a mile, maybe a quarter mile from the village. You know, the path changes a little bit and you see Hokka lined up in single file lines on either side of the pathway waiting for you to come back. And as you come back, they are reaching out to touch you as you pass by, almost like offering a blessing almost. And they
This
form
feels-
a pathway all the way to the main building where the Hokka chief usually lives. And Jubo leads you right up there, and the translator is standing there next to the door. And the translator says, we understand you were successful.
Well,
In part, but I don't think we're done. I think there's one more large entity we have to take care of before it's entirely safe for you to go back, but we need to rest up before that confrontation.
The Hokka chief wants to see Khonnos.
Okay.
The rest of you are welcome to sit as well, if you choose. But not those. And she points like to the goblin bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a hut that would work well as a prison, we can leave the two bodies there.
One's only asleep.
She points to the one of the guards there, and he's now holding them. He's holding them by the scruff of their neck, one in each hand, and he's kind of holding them out because he doesn't want to touch them. And he carries them off.
Yeah, the tied one's alive, the other one's not.
And I also gesture to Taga. This one needs food and water and rest as well.
She nods and says something to him in Hokka, and he acknowledges her words, but of course doesn't say anything.
He may need some extensive healing from what they were doing to him.
He is not of our tribe. Our clan is not familiar with his, but we will care for him.
Those goblins, And I like gesture to the where they took the goblins. Apparently teleported him to this island.
I see.
So I think he doesn't even know where he is in terms of where his clan is from.
Ah, that is unfortunate. I think we can return him home. It might be a long voyage.
That's assuming his clan still exists.
Ah, yes, that is.
I was gonna say, why are they taking Hokka from other clans? Wouldn't it be, and excuse me if this sounds a little morbid, but wouldn't it be a little easier to just
Wait a sec. Does the Mud Spinner clan have Mud Swimmer clan have a
shaman?
shaman?
Yes. It is me, the translator says.
Okay. And you can do magic.
Well, not magic in the sense that you mean that you do, but yes.
So that doesn't even make sense because my suggestion was maybe they need the shamans of different clans because he was a shaman of his clan.
Roll me a history check. Just Marcel with
18.
advantage.
18.
You remember seeing the Cliff Runner clan in that book, that Greenbloods book that you saw the listing of the 5 different Hokka clans? The Cliff Runner clan was listed there.
And did it say how many Hokka that clan had?
200, and they're
And the
actively
mud.
breeding.
But they just told us that they have never heard of this clan before.
Right. Well, they have not in this area.
Uh-huh.
She didn't say they haven't heard
Understood.
it. She said they're unfamiliar.
Right. Okay. Well, I have. It might be that he comes from a clan that is actually able to reproduce. That may be of help for your clan if we don't manage to get your incubation area back to functioning conditions.
I see. So it's not, you don't think that it will be ready to use again?
I don't know. There's a lot of dead bodies in that pit, and I don't know how that would affect. There's possibly thousands of dead bodies in there, and that's probably why you cannot properly fertilize your eggs in there. It just reeks of death.
I don't understand. How did thousands of dead bodies get into our incubation chamber?
They've been using, and I point again at the goblins, they've been using it as a ritual place for nefarious deeds.
I will have to start preparing a cleansing ritual. The chief will see you.
Okay, let's go.
So you get led back to the receiving room, I guess would be the best word for it. And it just really has the chief Hokka there with one other Hokka, and then of course the translator came in with you. And there's various comfortable chairs sitting around, and he invites you with a motion to sit.
I'll sit down.
flop down. Very royal-like.
Kind of give a side eye to Marcel as I sit down.
It's been a long day. You guys have made me walk there, walk back. I've got tiny legs.
So the chief looks at Khonnos and says, I have met with the council of elders, and we have discussed the prophecies and our interpretations of them. And we have decided that in order to properly adjust our interpretations, we need to know where your coral piece came from.
I will tell him basically the story of the tale of how I found it and where it was when I found it. It was basically in the hold of a sunken vessel in amongst some sunken reefs, and it was about 8 months ago. And just kind of relay the whole tale of this.
And you can draw a map for us?
Yes, I can.
And was there more than that one piece?
That's the only piece I found.
And you feel like it has a larger piece that goes with it?
Or it's part of a larger piece somewhere, yes. When we were in the temple, when you're in commuting grounds, and there was this coral altar, and I felt like there was a pulling. Describe it. The little piece basically was trying to pull itself towards the larger piece that was there. But this is something that the goblins created.
Was that the one in the mud pit?
With the mud pit,
it...
yeah.
I
The
thought
one
it
with
was. So it's not the one in the other room, the one with the lens, because there was an altar there too, a coral one.
Yeah, and then there was one in the main room, but I'm talking about the one in the actual mud pit room, because that's the one I felt the strongest pulling, well, an actual pulling towards.
But that one's not even coral, really.
Right, it's something that was somehow transformed into coral, and yet there's still the connection.
Pretty strong one if you took damage when we hit it, when Emran hit it.
Right, yeah.
And that punted you into the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Do you tell him that you took damage when Imran hit it?
I just mentioned it.
Yeah.
You said it out loud?
We were trying to free the captured shaman. There was a moment when it was inadvertently damaged, and I felt pain as a result.
That is down in our incubation chamber.
Yes.
Right on top of it. On top of the boiling pit.
I do not understand. We did not put our altar down there.
Well, there was an altar, another coral altar in the room above it.
And that we did not disturb.
We can draw on the dirt the plans for the temple, so he can show us which room he's familiar with.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I take out my journal and I start to sketch kind of where we went and the directions we took. And I do point out that, we think that we saw 3 altars, one at the top floor, one in the middle, one at the bottom. The one at the bottom, we don't think is something that you put there. That's a construct the goblins, Laralac, whoever's behind this has put there. And it is not benevolent.
So the Hokka chief says, when you returned, I was prepared to offer you membership in our tribe as an honor for protecting us and helping us clean our temple out. But I have to change my decision now. I think that instead of offering you membership in the tribe and recognition as tribal members and treatment as true Hokka, I must resign my chiefdom and present my ruling scepter to Khonnos.
To me.
And he sort of takes off a necklace that he had on, and he takes this basically almost like a foot-long stick, and it has lots of different carvings and symbols in it. And he holds it out to you. And he says,
Why?
this is required of me because I think that you are the true master of the coral. And that's where we're going to end.
Okay.
So is there anyone else in this little group of merry friends that isn't royalty?
Well, Mr. Axley.
I'm a royal pain in the butt.
And in some places, merchant families are like royalty. Right, Emran?
Sure.
Well, Axley hasn't really used his magic weapon very much yet, and he has not told you anything about it. So for all you know, he is royalty, and he just hasn't told
I
you.
know. We're having a conversation.
A sword doesn't make you royal.
That's what Marcel tried to say too. So we have a few minutes for debrief. We have some topics on our debrief list. So let me find it again, maybe, if I can. I probably should have typed it out.
Found it. Which one did we go through last time? Concentration?
Nope, we did.
No, about the DM.
Yep, and monster creation. We talked about monster creation.
Right. So we have
And
concentration,
adjustments, yeah.
prophecy and game settings, healing mechanics, short versus long rest. We and revisiting theater of the mind. Matt also suggested using spells versus using potions or other consumables.
Right. As part of the whole healing resource management.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about?
I have a question about prophecy because that's an interesting subject, especially considering kind of where we're at in the game. So, no, just a question from a GM perspective, right? So you start with this premise where you have a prophecy or a general framework of kind of what's going on behind the scenes, right, and how maybe we all tie into it, but it gets revealed piecemeal. Little bits and parts get revealed, and it's always this kind of nebulous thing where it's a mystery with a big reveal at the end at some point, I would imagine. How firm are you, and how do you stick to the prophecy? Because it gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of, since it's not really identified to the players, as long as it hasn't been revealed, you can continually change your plan depending on what the players do, right? I mean, it can be quite a storytelling element that you can modify on the fly depending on what the interests of the players and what they do from a role-playing standpoint.
Yeah, so the way I do it, So the great thing about prophecy, the reason prophecy and prophecy is a better word than say prediction or something like that, because prophecy is inherently fallible, right? It's inherently prophecy is usually in fantasy worlds, at least in my fantasy world. Those are things that they come from the historic teachings of a particular people or a particular religious sect, or they come from the knowledgeable ones, the knowledgeable members of a particular society. But prophecies, by definition, are open to interpretation multiple different ways.
They're
And
always
well,
subjective and whatnot.
yeah, so what that means is, so here's the thing is, I have the prophecies written down, and I don't change the wording of the prophecies. I mean, they just are what they are. What I do is respond as the NPCs in the world to the characters' actions. And in this particular case, it makes the Hokka question their entire interpretation of the of everything that they've known, because they were interpreting it in one particular way, and in fact two different prophecies they were interpreting in one particular way, and you all showing up matched their interpretation, so they thought it would lead to a particular outcome, and then that outcome is not what happened. At least not, it's not immediately obvious to the Hokka. So that leads them to think that maybe they need to change their interpretation, but that actually uh, that's problematic in itself, right? For a group of people, right? Anytime you say, hey, let's take this text that you've been using as a sort of foundational document for generations, and let's change how we interpret it all of the sudden, right? You can change how you interpret it over many generations maybe and not have as big of a upheaval, but if you change it all of a sudden, now it has a huge upheaval, because the the consequences of that now are unforeseen, right? So anyway, so the way I run prophecies is I write the prophecy down. In fact, if you guys ever make it to Cowport and to the library, you're going to run
Right.
across a couple of prophecies, and you will have them, because I will tell you what they are. So you'll have the actual text, and then you'll be responsible for trying to interpret them and react based on what you're right. So I don't change the prophecy. I make the prophecy. I say, oh, this group of people had this prophecy, and they interpret it this way, and then inevitably the party is going to change that, or events in the world are going to change that particular, uh, you know, way that group of people sees that prophecy. But so that's the one side. That's the side of, how do you deal with the prophecy? But the other side of the coin also is, when I'm running a game, I don't necessarily like that prophecy is a guiding document, right? It's not a planned, like, well, this has to happen, then this has to happen, then this has to happen, and I have to make that prophecy come true in the game, otherwise it all falls apart. Like, that's not how I plan my games. I plan my games with some events and some NPCs and some major big bads, and they have motivations, and they're trying to get their stuff done just like you're trying to get your stuff done. And ultimately, you end up crossing paths because you're trying to stop the big bad from achieving whatever their motivation is. But I don't plan, like, I don't plan every single thing. So, for example, the altar tonight that had the howler in it.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know that was going to happen. Right.
Right.
It just happened. And so now we all have to deal with the consequences of that, right? So for me as the GM, I have to make it make sense, right? And it does make sense. I wouldn't have made it happen if it didn't make sense. But it came to my mind as everything was happening, like, oh, well, that might be an interesting thing that they'll have to deal with. So there it is. Now it exists. But I I didn't plan it before this session and say, oh, I'm going to make that altar do this thing. Like I knew the altar was going to be important. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen.
I think
So
I think that's one of my favorite things about being a DM in a homebrew campaign, where you have certain nebulous ideas in terms of what the story's happening and everything, and like the
Mhm.
major set pieces, but other than that, you're reacting in the moment as much as the characters are,
Mhm.
as much as the players are on the other end. So it's like, oh, this suddenly makes sense for it to happen. It wasn't planned, but if it makes sense, then that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes sense if it fits with what's been developing. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like the I think the hard part of a prophecy is crafting it, because as a DM, like, you're not grabbing this prophecy from somewhere and using it. You're creating it from scratch
Mhm.
and giving it both knowing more or less what it wants to do, but also giving it that vagueness that can give it enough leeway so that if the characters go, hey, maybe this is what it means, you can go like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the nature of prophecy and storytelling and literature. I mean, it's always it's like it seems like sturdy and solid, but it's always enough vagueness in there that it can be interpreted in multiple different ways and this drive a story in multiple different directions as a result.
I, I think that's like the fun part of the DM's thing of like creating this thing that they're not entirely sure what it does or what it means, but then the players come along and dissect it and start thinking on it so much that you end up with like a few ideas that you can collate and like start thinking of your own. Like, it happened to me on my first campaign. um I gave my party something I found off of the internet. I didn't design myself, but a magic circle that they had to use. And the person playing the smart one of the party spent 2 weeks figuring out what the circle meant in the context of where they were as a party, and made the circle make sense for the ritual that they had to cast.
Right. Right.
I was like, well, that was a load off of my shoulders.
Always great when the players
Yeah.
do the heavy lifting for you.
Yep.
Yeah. There was a game I ran one time. It was D&D, but it was basic D&D, and it was a murder mystery type thing where the party had run across this particular incident and somebody had been killed, and then they spent, several sessions trying to figure out, well, who murdered this person. And so I had set it up where, it could possibly be one of these four people. And that if, depending on where they went to pick up clues, they would pick up these clues. And I had decided, well, it's going to be this person, person C, right? Because there's A, B, C, D possibilities. And that I was going to put all these clues in. And some of the clues, of course, would be red herrings or would be actually false things, like a false witness or something. And the party, the players went through and they got really excited and they really like grabbed onto a couple of the clues that didn't really make sense, but they thought, oh, but this is D&D, so it's a fantasy world, so we're going to make it make sense. And in the end, I ended up letting that person that they were convinced was the murderer, I changed what I thought was going to happen because I wanted them to feel like they succeeded. I didn't want them to feel stupid. So when they put all the clues together and they marched into the constable's office and they said, here's everything we know, we investigated this and we think it's this person for this reason and this reason and this reason, and then we saw this and this person saw that and they did this thing over here and so said this. And so I had the NPC that was the constable agree. They were convinced that the players, that the PCs had found all this evidence, and it didn't matter whether it was actually part of my plan in the beginning or not. The players had their PCs go and do the work of trying to find all these clues, and then they put them together and presented them. So that was the truth of the campaign now, regardless of what I initially thought. Oh, it's going to be this person here. Um, so sometimes that happens, right, where it's impossible to know exactly what clues people are going to latch onto and what's going to become important in a campaign. I ran this campaign one time where the party was in this haunted house type place, and they found a golden skull, like a gilded human skull, and they spent like 3 sessions in that house, almost in that same exact room, just trying to figure out why that skull is there. And it's like, so that skull then, which was really just a throwaway piece of, treasure that they could have cashed in for a lot of gold pieces. Now that skull had to take on some significance because as players, something about it, either the way I described it or where it was or just something about it, they just thought, oh, that must be really important. So, by the time the second session came along and they were still obsessing about the thing, I was ready with a whole bunch of interesting facts that they could learn about it now because they decided it was important enough.
And that speaks to like player agency and honoring the kind of the direction they want to take things. Did anybody watch the Critical Role, the Undeadwood miniseries they did a few weeks ago?
No.
No.
Okay.
I actually did.
What did you think of the end of that? When
Are you going to give spoilers? We'll put a
Yeah,
big
I
old
was gonna say
spoiler alert.
spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! 2 players at one point decide to have a duel.
Okay.
That's all I'll say about it. But a third player basically says, "Can I try to intervene?" And the DM thinks about it for a good long second and says, "No, you cannot." And literally they said verbatim, "No, you cannot." Didn't really give an in-game explanation of why why the situation wouldn't allow them to, but just said no. So yeah, Nina, what did you think about that? Do you think that was handled well or no?
I couldn't decide about it because it kind of surprised me, but I also think it's important for like characters to have like their moment, even if one of the other characters doesn't want that. So I liked it in that regard, but at the same time, then you have to kind of consider that other person that really wanted, like, didn't want this to happen.
Yeah.
Is that what they were trying to stop it? Is that what
they were trying to stop him from. They wanted to try to sneak up and knock one of them out, like hit him on the head with a beer bottle, basically.
I've had that situation in where like 2 players are basically trying to stop another player's agency, and it's a tough call because in that same first group of mine, I had one character who was playing the typical rogue, so she had the tendency to, every time the party stopped to try and plan out what they were going to do next, 5 minutes into the discussion, she would go, either whisper to me or just say out loud, "I hide and walk away." And every single time, what would happen is the person playing the paladin would go, "Can I roll perception to see if I notice this? Because I am keeping an eye on this rogue character that likes sneaking off." And he had an insanely high wisdom, so he would always spot her and stop her. And she was getting really frustrated. So yeah, initially she would say it out loud. Eventually she was getting so frustrated that I ended up having to be like, "If you're going to do that, tell it to me in a whisper so that the other player doesn't know. Roll your stealth check and I will compare it to his passive perception. Unless he has already stated that he is staring at you the whole time, I will let you sneak off."
Yeah.
Because it's not fun. Like, you're playing a character that likes sneaking off and causing trouble. Like, sure, it can screw the party over, but I don't want to stop your fun either just because someone else in the party wants to stop you from doing it every single time. So it's a difficult call there, because like, yeah, I've had it happen as well that like 2 players want to, like, their characters want to duke it out and someone tries to stop them. I generally let the dice decide if they stop them or not, instead of just going outright, "No, you can't."
Yeah, and the DM was later posting on Reddit and basically said, that's a decision I'll probably be rethinking or re-examining for quite some time.
Yeah.
Did it cause tension at that moment? Like, was there some hard feelings and some?
Nothing that was visible in the game.
Okay.
And they're all pretty good actors, so they'll take it in stride.
Well, and they're also their first loyalty is they're creating a TV show for entertainment. They're not there for themselves, so they're deferring to the GM to run the story for the audience.
Right. And it's a question of basically where does the GM where can the GM basically put the spotlight? And anyways, he also said, he also acknowledged he could have just easily have said, in this moment, everybody is watching you. It just wouldn't be possible for you to do that, rather than just simply saying, no, you can't. And that would have been probably a good way to that would have been a better way to say, no, you can't, rather than just saying, no, you can't.
I mean, interpersonal problems when it comes to blows can also be a tricky situation. Like, I already had it happen once that someone was like, no, because they didn't like what one of the characters was doing, and they went, I'm going to bop them on the head. And I usually go, like, sure, like, roll for it. I mean, fine. But they decided to use a cantrip plus their hit, and she ended up taking a lot of damage because it was a low level game. And she came to me afterwards and being like, I didn't like that. I didn't like having my character attacked by someone who's supposedly part of the group so badly that my character nearly died.
Yeah,
she got knocked out.
That's really hard. There's so player agency from from the DM to the players, not player to player agency, but just from the DM to players. There's the idea in sort of comes almost from improvisation of when the player says they want to do something or they want their PC to do something, you should be saying yes and, right? Or yes, right? Yes or yes and. Or if you have to say no, you should be saying no but, right? Like no, but I will allow this, or no, but here's why, or no, but, right? So that you're giving
some kind of compromise.
You're letting them know why you're not allowing them to exercise their agency. But from the player side of it, from just player versus player, like some of that sort of behavior, for me, the way that I have to always the way that I sort of historically deal with that is from the very beginning up front when I talk about the campaign and I talk to the players, I generally put some ground rules in place, right? Like, okay, there is no player versus player. You can create players or you can create PCs that have differences of opinion and differences of the way that they think it's the right way to go about accomplishing a goal. But you don't get to fight each other. That's not what any game I run is going to be about. Usually that's not the way the games I run are structured. So I expect every person to have a PC who has a reason to stay with the group, even if they have differences. Like generally that's an expectation that has to be laid out at the beginning. And if it's not, and then you have a situation where a player is being aggressive toward another player, like that's a rough situation. That's hard to deal with.
Yeah, because there's storytelling, like there's actions that are role playing and they're in the furtherance. They may cause tension in the group. Like there are certain actions, like for example, like in tonight's session, right? Marcel putting the necklace on might have been a contrary action, which could be harmful. It's impulsive and could be harmful to the group. It can have repercussions, right? But it still falls within the framework of the characters, the relationships. That's still kind of tense, but it could have repercussions that play out within the game. But if you have a player who routinely does very destructive things like that. I mean, because not all characters are created equal either. Like it can be bullying. If you've got a very strong character that can overpower everybody else because they're like a hefty fighter, it's bullying to basically use that leverage and that weight physically against another character all the time to get your way or to diminish them or to force your will on that other player. That's not a cohesive game environment. When you've got a loose cannon player that does that, then you have to start addressing whether that's going to be self-destructive to your gaming group and whether that's going to go forward.
Yeah. Or if you have that one player that just says, well, that's what my character would do, then the DM's response is, okay, well, here's what the guards are going to be doing when they see you doing that, when they catch you at it.
So. Yeah. So in the case of a player or a PC wanting to sneak off and do things that might not be good for the group, that's sort of the way that I think of to deal with it. Like there should be in-game consequences for that, right? Like, well, maybe you don't get caught the first or second time you sneak off and, commit larceny. But perhaps at some point someone's going to see you, and it might not be a guard. It might be a rival thieves guild member, or it might be a rival, you know, PC from a different party or something in the same town, or it might be, you know, whoever. There should be some consequences for that. Um, but yeah, it's tough because if those consequences then start to create problems for the entire group, then hopefully by the time that comes to fruition, the party is cohesive enough that they feel like they want to protect each other. And if another, you know, if a rival member, a powerful rival thief or assassin from another thieves guild comes to, you know, confront one of the party members, hopefully the rest of the party isn't going to be like, yeah, we're sick of her too. Take her off. You know, go ahead and do what you want with her. I mean, that's,
So,
you know,
That's actually what happened to this rogue of mine. She ended up pissing off really early on one of the thieves guilds in the continent they were on, and eventually that caught up to them, and they sent assassins after her. And despite the fact that she had, you know, she continued like sneaking off at points, and usually to do what the party was thinking of doing, just not waiting for them to
Mhm.
react. It was actually the paladin who saved her life from the assassins.
oh, I see.
Of course.
And months later, those two ended up in character marrying. So,
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Aw.
Sweet. Yeah,
that was fun.
that's funny. Well, that's a good wrap up.
So yes, it can happen that the paladin and the rogue end up somehow getting along.
Yeah. There's a concept there that is it's called closing the loop. And it's the idea that as a player or as a GM, DM, when you introduce a story element that becomes important, like sometimes as a GM you introduce something and the players don't grab onto it, they don't pay attention to it, or they don't take notes, or they think it's inconsequential. So you kind of have to understand that you need to forget about those maybe, and then, you know, and then focus on the things that the party is obviously actually interested in. But then there's this idea of when you do introduce something that has some importance, you need to be able to have a closure to the loop of information there. Like there has to be some kind of resolution ability, right? Or capability, I guess I should say. Not everything might, you know, it feels really satisfying to say, oh, everything is going to be resolved to 100% functionality, you know, if that makes sense. Not everything needs to actually be resolved, but everything needs to be addressed, if that makes sense. So there needs to be a closure to that loop of information where if you heard about this event that occurred in the world that was supposedly so important that even though it was on a different continent, you heard about it, well, there needs to be some effect that finds its way back to you about how you can learn how that was resolved, even if your party decided to have nothing to do with it, because otherwise the world doesn't seem like a living place. It's just a static place that nothing happens in until the party walks in. And that's not really realistic, right? You have to have a way to close the informational loop on everything, even the things that the party's not focused on at the moment. You know, it needs to feel like a living world. And part of making it feel like a living world is being able to resolve issues and resolve things and have consequences.
When my husband's DMing for me, he basically says, you know, you got the player, the party you're controlling, you can be doing all your own things, your own agendas, your own missions. The rest of the world is still turning. Everybody else in the world still has stuff they want to do too.
Right.
It is a living, breathing world.
There is a strategy to GMing that I know several people who use. That they basically give the party three major options of things to deal with, and if you pick one, you might be able to do another one when you get done with that first one, but you'll never be able to do all three, which means either some other adventuring group, some other group of heroes has to resolve that third item, or no one resolves that third item, but that means it comes to fruition, and whoever the villain was in that particular event succeeded, and that has repercussions later. And that's sort of how they plan their game. They sort of have always three major things going on, and the party can get to one, maybe two of them, but never the third one. And the player agency there is which one do you pick first, which determines what condition the second one that you're going to pick is in by the time you get to it. And also then picking the second one determines which one you can't get to. So the players are the ones choosing, but there's always like a cost to the choice, right? It's like the trolley problem, right? If you're driving a trolley and you have to switch and you can go down one track or you can go down the other, and down one track is someone that you're related to or that you love or that's in your family, and down the other track is a group of people. Well, which one do you go down? Do you kill the people you don't know, or do you kill the person that you love? There's not a good choice there, right? That's a huge issue. It's an ethical dilemma that you cannot ethically resolve without causing a lot of trouble. Well, that's the same idea. If you get three choices, well, you can only resolve two of these issues, and the third one's going to not get resolved no matter what. That's a little rough, you know? It's rough. On the other hand, it does make for a living, breathing world with lots of villains.
And some great player debating too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I think that'll wrap it up for us for this episode of DnDeBrief. So, is there anything anybody wants to encourage anyone to go visit on the internet or go look at? No,
I still
no.
have my Patreon up, patreon.com/Midgardia. I am keeping up with the mapping. I've got Descent into Avernus and Dungeon of the Mad Mage maps that I am making prettier versions for mostly virtual tabletop use. So those people who prefer something more than the black and white versions that come with the books, which are good for tabletop play, but on the virtual tabletop side, it's a bit bland.
Yep. Yep.
And those are free, so you can go check them out and use them for your own campaign.
Awesome. Free stuff. Go look at it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I don't have anything to pimp either. So everybody say goodbye, and we will check out for today.
Bye.